Hello everyone. This is my compilation of all the stories of Sylvanas that we've done so far. I hope you'll enjoy. Not much is known about Sylvanas before the first Horde invasion, which used to be true. But we got a bit more family history with the Sylvanas novel, so let me give you a bit of a rundown. Lord Windrunner was their father, and King Anastarion's most trusted advisor. Larissa Windrunner was their mother. Ranger General of Silvermoon as her mother before her, as the Windrunner lineage holds the line. Illyria Windrunner, eldest, and named after Larissa's mother, who was supposed to take up the title of Ranger General, but life, as we know, it took her in a different direction. Instead, it's Sylvanas that takes up the title and position, something that didn't happen without quite the arguments. Sylvanas was already as good as I am years ago. Better maybe than I will ever be, Illyria told her mother. It does not matter if she is the better shot. Sylvanas does not have the temperament for leadership. She's not dedicated enough. She's had countless opportunities to gain allies at court, and she has squandered every one of them through foolishness and mischief. Now you grasp at straws, mother. She has halted on and Lorfmar on her side. Many of the Farstriders appreciate her distaste for formalities and pretense, and cannot think of a single challenge Sylvanas has faced but not met. Let her turn her mind to leadership, and you will see it exceed your expectations. She is the Ranger General you were hoping for, not me. Sylvanas overhears this argument and tells her mother that she may be second choice, but she will see that Sylvanas is not second best. The part about Sylvanas being a better shot, that has to do with helping Illyria during her trial. Or at least in Sylvanas' mind, she was trying to help. She was trying to save the day. Illyria was supposed to prove herself by taking down a lynx, but the challenge was a bit much to overcome. Sylvanas tracks her down, interrupts the test, and takes the kill. And while she did save Illyria's life, she also ruined the test, so she thought that she was helping. In a similar case, there was Lirav. Lirav, her brother, was singing and performing at court, and people were making fun of him. So Sylvanas thought that she was going to save him, that she was going to help him out by poisoning some drinks, by pulling a prank. That's the part about her wasting opportunities to gain allies at court. Again, Sylvanas thinking that she knows what is best, that she is supposed to save everybody, a trait that we see push on further in life. Then Varisa, youngest of the sisters, she's the peacemaker and diplomat. While Lirav, their little brother, he's different from the women in his family. They are the fighters, whereas his strength comes from bringing beauty into the world with his songs and music, working his way up the ranks to eventually become a royal musician and teach others his craft. Sylvanas wanted to make sure to keep him safe, away from the battlefield, from injuries and death. When he confided in her that he felt different from the rest of his family, that perhaps he should invest more time in training, she reassured him that he was brilliant the way that he was, and that he should stick with the arts. Keeping them safe was a wonderful dream, but this is Warcraft after all, quite the difficult quest. They would see Illyria spread her wings and eventually join Turelion and the Alliance of Lordaeron. Before she left, their mother presented Illyria with a gift, a chain which represented her brother Lirav, keeping together 3 gemstones, a ruby, a sapphire, and an emerald. The Windrunner family unified, and then change and war reached their shores. The Horde had allied with the Yamani trolls, and worked hard on invading elven lands. Their parents were slain in an ambush, which the Horde took great care of hiding. They pulled out their arrows, while leaving the ones of the trolls behind, trying to make it clear who was behind the attack. But one arrow was discovered and brought to their king, King Anastarion, who promptly tossed it into the fire. The one bit of real evidence they had of Horde aggression against the elves. The king thought that he could keep his people safe by not making this their war. And she could see that the king knew much more of politics and war than Sylvanas did. And she also knew that her parents would have seen this, and they would have obeyed their king. As now she had to, but pretending only goes so far. Soon enough, the Hordes, the Yamani, the enslaved red dragons were knocking on their door. Their magical protected lands were invaded, and their little brother Lirav was slain. Despite not wanting him trained in combat, Varisa had done it anyways, knowing how her brother felt, how different he had felt from the rest of them. Would it have made a difference? Would he have survived if he had not been trained? Who's to say? But the choice of doing this anyways, it would hang between Varisa and Sylvanas for a little bit. And all that grief and all that suffering that was brought upon them, it pushed the now Ranger General to the brink of madness. Thankfully, there was Nephanos in her life, his strong arms to fall back into, the only solid thing in a whirl of chaos and emotion, clinging to the lifeline that he offered. The human and elf had become very close, as we already speculated about way back when. The book then goes into the events of Warcraft 3 and beyond. but they'll leave past me to do the rest of the talking.
We know that she comes from the Windrunner family, and most of you probably know her sisters. You have the oldest sister, Alleria Windrunner, who joined the Alliance of Lordaeron in their battle against the first Horde invasion. She also stepped through the Dark Portal after the Horde's second invasion to try and prevent the Horde from invading different worlds. She fell in love with the human paladin Trellian, and they made the ultimate sacrifice of closing the Dark Portal on Draenar's side to prevent Azeroth from being destroyed. Many believed that the Alliance expedition was gone forever, but the Dark Portal reopened during the Burning Crusade, and we discovered that several of the members were still alive. However, Alleria and Trellian, they're still missing, and we have no idea where Sylvanas, her older sister, currently is. Now, her younger sister, Verisa Windrunner, she was sent on a secret mission to help the human mage Ronin. They would eventually assist with the liberation of the Red Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, and on their journey, Verisa and Ronin grew closer. Ronin would become the leader of the Kirin Tor. They would have 2 children together, but tragedy struck at the bombing of Vedamore. Ronin, he sacrificed himself by drawing in the mana bomb to control the explosion and save his wife. He even managed to push Jaina into a portal before the explosion hit, and his sacrifice saved many lives. Ronin's death would have a great impact on Verisa and by extension Sylvanas, but we'll get to that story later on. Now for Sylvanas, she describes herself when she was young as very vain. She was beautiful, even for high elf standards, and she was a very skilled hunter, the most promising one in her family. This skill, this talent, would earn her the title of Ranger General of Silvermoon. Sylvanas was actually the commander of all of Quel'thelas' military forces, and like I mentioned, the first time that shows up in the story is during the first Horde invasion. The Horde, by this point, had already taken Stormwind and were on their way to conquer Lordaeron. Anduin Lothar took as many of his people as he could from Stormwind across the sea to warn the Kingdom of Lordaeron about the Horde and get a fighting force going. The nobles of Lordaeron, they formed the Alliance of Lordaeron, and Lothar's bloodline goes back to the Arathi bloodline. The Arathi, they aided the High Elves many years ago in the so-called Troll Wars, and the High Elves had promised their aid, their allegiance to the descendants of the Arathi bloodline. However, the High Elves, they did not see the Horde as a threat to their lands. They relied on their magic to defend their own home, and they only sent a token force to aid the Alliance. Alleria Windrunner, she disagreed with her leader's choices, and she volunteered to join the token force in the war against the Horde. She believed that the Horde could be a threat to all of the world, not just the humans, and she would be proven right. Eventually, the Horde, they marched upon the Kingdom of Quel'thelas, and Alleria, she wanted nothing more than to run back home and warn her kin, but Trellian, he kept her in line. There was no way that she would make the trip back home on her own, even though he himself wanted nothing more than to warn them, but they had to be smart and they had to stick together. Part of the Alliance, they marched to Quel'thelas as the Horde already began their assault. The trolls who had joined the Horde, they had been enemies with the elves for centuries, and they could not wait to kill every elf they could find. From the trees, they swooped down, they took up patrols, as the rest of the Horde, they made ready for a full assault. Once the Alliance arrived, they could see that fires were spreading across the forest and that the Horde had already begun their assaults. Trellian, he wanted to work together with the elves, he wanted to coordinate their attacks, so finally he could give Alleria the freedom to run back home and warn her people. In the meantime, the Alliance kept the Horde busy, and Alleria first ran into her sister Verisa as a pack of trolls dropped down from the trees. The trolls, they outnumbered them, but they didn't know the forest as well as Verisa did. Together with her sister, they ran to a stream. The trolls close behind, so close that they were nearly grabbed, but just before they could, the trolls were shot down by Sylvanas and her troops. Alleria took one of the troll heads with her as she met with the council to convince them of the dangers right at the borders. At first the council didn't want to listen, but when they saw the head, they knew that her words were true. Their king, an Astarian Sunstrider, he was outraged that the trolls dared to invade their lands, and he now committed the full might of the High Elves' military forces to the Alliance. Led by Sylvanas Windrunner and her second-in-command Lorfmar Ferran, the High Elves and the Alliance, they crushed the Horde between their two forces. Things were looking up, as their plan was obviously working, but the Horde, it was no pushover. They released their Ogre Magi, and they even had dragons breathe fire from the sky, and this the Alliance simply could not take. On top of that, Quel'thelas was obviously not the primary focus of the Horde. They had set their eyes upon the capital city of Lordaeron, so Turellian, he was forced to take their troops and chase the Horde before they could take on the heart of the Alliance. Sylvanas, her people, they still had their magic, their Sunwell to protect their city, and not even the dragons were able to penetrate those defenses, so for the moment, their people would be alright. The Horde laid siege on the capital city, and they probably would have won the war in a day or two, was it not for Gul'dan. Gul'dan felt no allegiance to the Horde, all he cared about was getting more power for himself, and he knew that there was power to be found at the depths of the ocean. He split his forces away from the Horde, which forced Doomhammer to send his own troops after Gul'dan to take revenge upon this traitor. In the meantime, the Alliance had also cut off the Horde's route of reinforcements, and Turellian, Sylvanas, Illyria, Lor'themar, all of them were assaulting the Horde as they tried to take the city. All in all, things were simply not looking good, and Doomhammer had to retreat all the way back to Blackrock Mountain. The Alliance, they followed the bulk of the Horde as the High Elves made sure to clean their forest of any invading forces. Not a lot of details are given about this fight, but we do know that Sylvanas, she lost a lot of her people to the Horde's invasion and a lot of her own family, including her little brother Lyrath. Upon finding this out, Illyria went off the deep end for quite some time as she saw how much damage the Horde had done to her people, and she devoted herself to killing every single orc that she could get her hands on. Sylvanas, she had her own forces to lead as they cleaned up their lands, and due to their allegiance with the Alliance, she allowed a human to join the ranks of her Farstriders. Nathanos Maris became the first and last of the human ranger lords, despite Sylvanas' her people objecting against this. Sylvanas didn't care what the people said, not even Kilfa's Sunstrider was able to force her to send Nathanos away, and some of the fans speculate that there was more going on. That there was more to Nathanos than just his skill that attracted Sylvanas, but that's purely speculation from the fans. It would make sense though. We have Illyria who fell in love with Turellian, we have Vrisa who fell in love with Ronan, and Sylvanas perhaps with Nathanos? Who knows? What we do know for certain is that the Dark Portal would reopen and the Horde returned for a second invasion. Sylvanas, she did not join the Alliance expedition as they battled the Horde, but her older sister Illyria did decide to join the troops. Before they stepped through the Dark Portal, she sent out her friend Verana to bring a gift to her sisters. Illyria realized that there was a very big chance that it would never return, so she wanted her sisters to have something to remember her by. From a necklace given to her by her parents, she made 3 individual lockets. 1 emerald, 1 ruby and 1 sapphire with an inscription for each of her sisters. To Vrisa, with love Illyria, and to Sylvanas, love always Illyria. Verina told Illyria that she would keep the lockets safe until Illyria would return, and then she could give them herself. But as we know, Illyria would not return, and the gifts were delivered to her sisters. This ends the story of the first and second Horde invasion, and it brings us to the events of Warcraft 3. Over time, the Alliance and the alliance with the High Elves, it would weaken. With no major force to fight and to unite them, the kingdoms, they started to fight amongst each other about where to spend their gold, what to do with the remaining orcs, and this also meant that the High Elves, they stayed more to themselves. The Lich King, who was sent by Kil'jaeden to weaken Azeroth and summon more of the Burning Legion, he made contact with the human wizard Kel'Thuzad, and together they worked on spreading a plague across the kingdom. This plague did not only kill, but it also resurrected the dead as forces for the Scourge. The Prince of Lordaeron, a young paladin by the name of Arthas Menethil, was sent by his father to investigate the reports of this plague. Together with Uther the Lightbringer and Jaina Proudmoore, they saw how their people were converted, and they even managed to kill Kel'Thuzad. Killing the wizard did not stop the plague from spreading though, and at Stratholme, Arthas had to make an impossible choice since the plague had already reached the city. Disguised as a shipment of grain, the citizens had baked it into the bread, and there was no telling who had already eaten from it.
Oh no. We're too late. These people have all been infected. They may look fine now, but it's just a matter of time before they turn into the undead. What? This entire city must be purged.
Arthas made the choice to purge the city, while Jaina and Uther, they turned away from him. Inside the city, he found the Dreadlord Mal'Ganis, who taunted Arthas to meet him in the cold heart of Northrend.
Gather your forces and meet me in the Arctic land of Northrend. It is there that we shall settle the score between us. It is there that your true destiny will unfold.
I'll hunt you to the ends of the earth if I have to. Do you hear me? To the ends of the earth!
And so he did. Arthas was able to stop Mal'Ganis by picking up the cursed blade known as Frostmourne, but by doing so, he gave up a piece of his soul. Now he too was listening to the whispers of the Lich King, which told him to go home and take the throne from his father.
What is this? What are you doing, my son? Succeeding you, father.
Now the kingdom was truly lost, and Arthas destroyed in days what his father had tried to build in years. His next mission was to reclaim the remains of Quel'thelas and resurrect him as a lich. To do this, they would need an incredibly powerful source of power, and lucky for them, they could find such a power in Quel'thelas, namely the Sunwell. Sylvanas received reports from a scout that the undead were marching, and naturally the High Elves they'd heard rumors about the plague spreading across the human lands, but they had thought that they would be safe in their own city. Quel'thelas had been able to stand against trolls, against orcs and even dragons. Surely this new threat wouldn't be a problem. They had made this mistake before, only this time the mistake would cost them dearly.
You are not welcome here. I am Sylvanas Windrunner, Ranger General of Silvermoon. I advise you to turn back now.
It is you who should turn back, Sylvanas. Death itself has come to your land.
Do your worst. The Elf Gate to the Inner Kingdom is protected by our most powerful enchantments. You shall not pass.
Sylvanas met Arthas on the field of battle as he tried to defend the first gate, but the might of the Scourge was incredible. Every slain enemy Arthas simply raised back to life, and her fallen forces were either converted into the Scourge or their dead bodies used as ammunition to throw at her. Reluctantly, Sylvanas gave the order to fall back to their second gate, an order she had never imagined she would have to give.
Shindufan. Fall back to the second gate. Fall back!
The Elf Gate has fallen. Onward, my warriors. Onward to victory.
You've won through this gate, Butcher, but you won't get through the second. The inner gate to Silvermoon can only be opened with a special key, and it shall never be yours.
You waste your time, woman. You cannot outrun the inevitable.
You think that I'm running from you? Apparently, you've never fought elves before.
Damn that woman! We must find a way to cross the river.
The kingdom of Quel'thelas had always been well defended by magic, but a traitor from within, Darkan Drafir, had told Arthas about the Key of Three Moons and how to break through the magical defenses. Blowing up the bridge had bought Sylvanas some precious time to warn her people, but it did not stop the Scourge. Arthas filled the water with enough corpses to create a bridge, which allows his troops to move further. Sylvanas, she knew that one way or another they would have to make a stand against this butcher, and as they prepared themselves, she fought back to a time where the world was right. Where she, her sisters and her brother, they loved to sing a song together. By the light of the sun, high elves, our enemies are breaking through.
I salute your bravery, Elf, but the chase is over.
Then I'll make my stand here, Butcher. Anara la Balori. Finish it. I deserve a clean death.
After all you've put me through, woman, the last thing I'll give you is the peace of death.
No, you wouldn't dare.
And then it went away. It all went away. The coldness, the stench, the searing pain. It was soft and warm and dark and calm and comforting, and Sylvanas permitted herself to sink into the welcoming darkness. At last she could rest, could lay down the arms she'd borne for so long in service to her people. And then agony shot through her, agony such as she had never known, and Sylvanas suddenly knew that no physical pain she had ever endured could hold a pale candle to this torment. This was an agony of the spirit, of her soul leaving her lifeless form and being trapped.
Why have I been summoned?
Arthas denied Sylvanas the peace of the afterlife. He ripped her soul out of her body, turned her into a Banshee under his full control, and he kept her body locked away in a chest just for a little bit of extra torment. Sylvanas was forced to watch in horror as Arthas took down her city and killed her king. An Astarian Suntrider, he tried to defend his people, but he was over 3,000 years old, and he was no match for the might of Frostmourne. Sylvanas, she had screamed before when Arthas had tortured her, but now she let out a scream like none she had ever before. The pain and agony of watching her people fall poured out of her, and against her will she did even more damage to her people. Her Banshee scream scattered armor and made her people bleed out of their ears and die. Arthas had succeeded in his mission, and he claimed the Sunwell.
Citizens of Silvermoon, I have given you ample opportunities to surrender, but you have stubbornly refused. Know that today, your entire race and your ancient heritage will end. Death itself has come to claim the high home of the elves. Now arise, Quel'thelas, and serve the Lich King once again.
Sylvanas couldn't believe that all of this destruction, the brutal murder of her people, was all just to bring Quel'thelas back to life. She was sickened by all of this, and the only thing that gave her a little breather from her agony was to see how Darkhan was foolish enough to try and betray Arthas as he had betrayed his people. Arthas showed no mercy, and he took Darkhan's life just as he had taken Sylvanas her life. Now Kil'jaeden's plan of sending the Lich King to Azeroth was to bring the Legion for a new invasion. Quel'thelas was put on the task of summoning Archimonde, and he actually succeeded in bringing this powerful demon to our world.
You have done well, little Lich. My plan worked perfectly. Lord Archimonde, all the preparations have been made. Very well, Tichondrius. Since the Lich King is of no further use to me, you Dreadlords will now command the Scourge. As you wish, Lord Archimonde. Soon, I will order the invasion to begin. But first, I will make an example of these paltry wizards by crushing their city into the ashes of history.
This has got to be a joke. What happens to us now?
Be patient, young Death Knight. The Lich King foresaw this as well. You may yet have a part to play in his grand design.
The Lich King, he did not work willingly for Kil'jaeden. In secret, he worked on his own plans of undermining the Legion, and he had Arthas point Illidan towards the skull of Gul'dan. This skull would give Illidan the power needed to take out the powerful Dreadlord known as Tichondrius, and by extension give the Night Elves, the humans and the Orcs the opportunity to defeat Archimonde. This meant that the Legion invasion was prevented, but the other Dreadlords left in command of the Scourge, they did not know about this. Arthas saw how Archimonde fell at the battle for Mount Hyjal, and he quickly made his way back to his kingdom.
What? Who could possibly...
Greetings, Dreadlords. I should thank you for looking after my kingdom during my absence. However, I won't be requiring your services any longer.
Prince Arthas, this land is ours. The Scourge belongs to the Legion.
Not anymore, demon. Your masters have been defeated. The Legion is undone. Your deaths will complete the circle.
Never! This isn't over, human. We knew you would return to us, Prince Arthas.
I have returned, Lich, but you will now address me as king. This is, after all, my land.
But what King Arthas didn't count on was that the Lich King's powers were draining. Casting out Frostmourne had created a crack in the ice, and Illidan's attempt at trying to destroy Icecrown from a distance had made this crack bigger. The Lich King informed Arthas that danger was approaching and that he quickly had to come back to Northrend to merge with him, so Arthas prepared for the journey. With his powers diminished, Sylvanas found that her will was her own again. She no longer heard the whispers of the Lich King in her mind, and the time of vengeance was upon her. She met with the Dreadlords, and they made their plans to overthrow the king.
Lady Sylvanas, we are pleased that you came.
How could I not? For some reason, I no longer hear the Lich King's voice in my head. My will is my own once again. You Dreadlords seem to know why.
We've discovered that the Lich King is losing his power. As it wanes, so too does his ability to command undead such as you.
And what of King Arthas? What about his powers?
Though his rune-blade Frostmourne carries powerful enchantments, Arthas's own powers will fade in time. It is inevitable.
You seek to overthrow him, and you want my help to do it.
The Legion may be defeated, but we are the Nathrazim. We'll not let some upstart human get the best of us. Arthas must fall. The Lich Quel'thelas is far too loyal to betray his master. But you, on the other hand...
Hate him. I have my own reasons for seeking vengeance. Arthas murdered my people and turned me into this monstrosity. I may take part in your bloody coup, but I will do so in my own way.
We have no time for this. We must find our way out quickly. You have my thanks, ladies. But where is your mistress? Where is Sylvanas?
She sent us to find you, Great King. We've come to escort you across the river. Once we cross it, we'll take refuge in the wilderness.
Sylvanas, she had been able to recover her body from the chest in which Arthas had ordered it to be placed. Her banshees led Arthas into a trap to the place where Sylvanas would finally have her revenge.
This is the place, sisters. We'll rest here, Great King.
Why here? We've got to find Quel'thelas before we...
You have been deceived. Come to my side at once. Obey.
What is happening here? Sylvanas.
You walked right into this one, Arthas. It's time to even the scales.
Traitor! What have you done to me?
It's a special poisoned arrow I made just for you. The paralysis you're experiencing now is but a fraction of the agony you've caused me.
Finish me, then.
A quick death? Like the one you gave me? No. You're going to suffer as I did. Thanks to my arrow, you can't even run. Give my regards to hell, you son of a bitch.
Back, you mindless ones! You shall not fall today, my king.
This isn't over, Arthas. I'll never stop hunting you.
Quel'thelas showed up just in time and he saved Arthas' life, and Arthas would make the journey to Northrend as Quel'thelas stayed behind to rule his kingdom. Apparently at some point during this story, Quel'thelas he either went into hiding or he relocated to Naxxramas. Either way, he kinda disappeared from the story as Sylvanas was contacted by the Dreadlords.
You seem troubled, mistress.
Aren't you, sister? Only days ago we were the Lich King's slaves. We existed only to slaughter in his name. And now, we are free.
I don't understand, mistress. I thought you'd be overjoyed.
What joy is there in this curse? We are still undead, sister. Still monstrosities. What are we if not slaves to this torment?
Sylvanas. My brothers and I appreciate the role you played in overthrowing Arthas. I've come to offer you a formal invitation to join our new order.
There in Mothras. My only interest was in seeing Arthas dead. I have no time for your petty politics or power-mongering.
Careful, milady. It would be unwise to incur our wrath. We are the future of these plague lands. You can either join us and rule, or be cast aside.
I lived as a slave long enough, Dreadlord. I won't relinquish my freedom by shackling myself to you fools.
So be it.
Our reply will come soon.
Revenge, that's what Sylvanas wanted at this point. But to take out Arthas, she first had to get a home base, she had to get an army. The Dreadlords, they were not pleased with her declining their invitation, so Sylvanas knew that they would strike soon. There was plenty of work to do before Sylvanas could get her revenge, and the first step was to take on the Dreadlords. With her Banshee sisters, she managed to take over some of the local population, like ogres, gnolls and murlocs. These forces, they proved to be powerful enough to take on Varimafra's forces, but the Dreadlords, he made Sylvanas an offer.
Any final words, demon?
Sylvanas, spare my life. I beg you. I can be of service. I swear it.
Just like a demon, you'd sell your brethren out just to save your own skin. I'm listening.
I know what my brother's plans are. I know where their forces are based. Just let me serve you, and I'll help you defeat them.
All right, Varimafras. I'll let you prove your loyalty to me. But be warned, I'm keeping you on a short leash.
Varimafras, true to his word, led Sylvanas directly to his brother Deferok, and there they find out that Deferok used his powers to control the humans, amongst them General Gerithos. Sylvanas, she used her own banshees to take control of the humans. They opened the gates from the inside, and together they took out the armies before they even realized what hit them. Taking out Deferok released the humans from his spell, and Sylvanas made a deal with Gerithos.
The spell has been lifted. Is the nightmare finally over?
Stand down, humans. I have no quarrel with you.
What is it you want, elf witch?
We have a common enemy. The last Dreadlord Balnazar currently controls the capital city of your kingdom. If you help me kill him, I'll see to it that you get your lands back.
Why should we trust you? You're part of the scourge that drove us out in the first place.
Not anymore. My only interest here is vengeance.
Very well. I'll rally what's left of my forces and meet you outside the gates.
Come now. You have no intention of giving them their lands back.
Of course not. The humans are simply a means to an end.
You sound more like one of us with every passing day, my lady.
Watch it, Dreadlord.
All three of them, they strike out at Balnazar's forces, and they actually manage to take the capital city. However, before taking out Balnazar, Sylvanas had one final test for Varimafras.
It's over, Balnazar. Varimafras.
Yes, my lady.
Kill him.
But it is forbidden for one of the Nathrazim to kill another. My defection was one thing, but this...
I require one last test of your loyalty, Dreadlord. Do it.
You wouldn't dare.
There, your business is done. Now I want you wretched animals out of my city before I...
Kill him, too.
Gladly.
The capital city is ours, but we are no longer part of the Scourge. From here on out, we shall be known as the Forsaken. We will find our own path in this world, Dreadlord, and slaughter anyone who stands in our way.
And so Sylvanas, she created a home for those who were able to step away from the Lich King's control. The Forsaken, they rallied around their Banshee Queen with their main goal of getting revenge upon the one who placed this curse upon them. Arthas' journey would eventually lead him to merging with the Lich King, as Sylvanas, she reached out to find more allies and secure her position in the world.
Bound to the iron will of the tyrant Lich King, the vast undead armies of the Scourge seek to eradicate all life on Azeroth. Led by the Banshee Sylvanas Windrunner, a group of renegades broke away from the Scourge and freed themselves of the Lich King's domination. Known by some as the Forsaken, this group fights a constant battle, not only to retain its freedom from the Scourge, but also to slaughter those who would hunt them as monsters. With Sylvanas as their Banshee Queen, The Forsaken have built a dark stronghold beneath the ruins of Lordaeron's former capital city. This hidden undercity forms a sprawling labyrinth that stretches beneath the haunted woods of the Tirisfal Glades. Though the very land is cursed, the zealous humans of the Scarlet Crusade still cling to their scattered holdings, obsessed with eradicating the undead and retaking their homeland.
Sylvanas and the Forsaken had but one mission: to take revenge and kill Arthas. Defeating the Dreadlords was a great step, but they would need more allies. Sylvanas, she sent out several messages trying to find some sort of allegiance, but most of the world saw them as monsters and simply wanted them dead. War Chief Thrall was convinced by Hamul Rune Totem that there was potential for redemption in Sylvanas, her people. Thrall fully realized the sinister nature of the Forsaken, but he also trusted Hamul and he allowed the Forsaken into the Horde. This did not only increase the Forsaken's chances of victory against the Lich King and anyone else who tried to take them on like the Scarlet Crusade, it also gave the Horde a foothold in the Eastern Kingdoms. During one of her journeys, Sylvanas found her way back to Quel'thelas. Some way, somehow, the traitor Darkon Dravir, he managed to survive Arthas' punishments and he was trying to reclaim the remaining powers of the Sunwell. The Sunwell, it was destroyed after Arthas used it to resurrect Kel'Thuzad, and this story takes place in the Sunwell comics. In this story, we find out that the remaining powers of the Sunwell, they were transformed into a living being known as Envina. Sylvanas does her best to take out Darkon, but not even her Banshee scream was able to stop him. In the end of the story, Darkon is supposedly killed by the powers of the Sunwell, and Sylvanas, she promises to keep Envina's identity a secret. Darkon would prove to be near impossible to kill, since during the Burning Crusade he actually returned once again. This time adventurers were put on the task of killing him and collecting his head, and we can only hope that he will stay dead. Nathanos Maris, the first and last of the human Ranger Lords, he fell to the Scourge and eventually became an undead. Sylvanas made sure that he joined the Forsaken before the Scourge recruited him, and Nathanos is still very loyal to Sylvanas, which further supports the speculation that there was something more between Sylvanas and Nathanos. Nathanos was still considered to be a hero of the Alliance, and the Alliance was put on the quest to restore order and release Nathanos from his undead curse. A small army was required to take down the Ranger Lord, but Nathanos, he managed to survive the encounter by feigning his death. These days, Nathanos trains new Forsaken in the ways of the Hunter. The final thing I want to mention before we talk about the expansions is the Royal Apothecary Society. This society was created by Sylvanas, and it was put on the task to make sure that the Forsaken would have enough firepower to take on the Lich King. They were working on a new form of plague, which would not only wipe out the Scourge, not only the undead, but also any other form of life. The other race of the Horde, they actually believed that the Forsaken were working on a cure for the undead illness, but in truth, they performed horrible experiments on both the living and the dead. Nothing would stand in Sylvanas her way of getting revenge.
Convinced that the primitive races of the Horde can help them achieve victory over their enemies, the Forsaken have entered an alliance of convenience. Harboring no true loyalty for their new allies, they will go to any lengths to ensure their dark plans come to fruition. As one of the Forsaken, you must massacre any who pose a threat to the new order, human, undead, or otherwise.
As we all know, the Blood Elves, they entered the game during the Burning Crusade. The Blood Elves, they actually used to be High Elves, but they now call themselves Blood Elves in honor of all those who had fallen while trying to defend their land against Arthas and the Scourge. Officially, their people were told that Sylvanas, she had simply died with the rest of them, but rumor had it that there was more going on, that Sylvanas was now actually the Banshee Queen. Apparently, Sylvanas still felt some sort of connection to her people, since she played a massive role in getting the Blood Elves into the Horde. Besides that, she also offered the support of the Forsaken to secure the land against any remaining Scourge forces. The Blood Elves, they first refused her offer, thinking it was some sort of trick, but eventually they let her in and they became a solid part of the Horde. As Blood Elves quest through the Ghostlands, they can find a necklace at the Windrunner Spire, the same necklace once given to Sylvanas by her older sister, Illyria. You can bring the necklace back to the Dark Lady, and first she says that the necklace and her sister are a long dead memory, but Sylvanas, she can't hold up that mask for very long. Her older sister still holds a spot in her dark heart, and Sylvanas, she sings the Lament of the Highborn as she remembers her old life.
What joy is there in this curse?
5 years took place between Arthas merging with the Lich King and him waking up to strike out at the world once more. Sylvanas, her people, they've been able to invent a plague that did not only kill the living, but also the undead, Forsaken and Scourge alike. Even though Sylvanas had regained full control, she still felt a certain link with Arthas, and when he woke up, she felt it in her soul. At last, Arthas, you will pay for what you have done. The humans who spawn such as you shall be slaughtered. Your scourge shall be stopped in their tracks. You will no longer be able to hide behind your armies of mindless undead puppets. And we will grace you with the same mercy and compassion you showed us. Thrall was cautious and reluctant to give the order to assault Northrend, but once the Scourge struck out at Orgrimmar, he saw no other way. Gerard's Hellscream was put in charge of leading the bulk of the horde into Northrend, and of course, Sylvanas also joined the assault. The Blood Elves, they were also reluctant to support the war against Arthas, since they just had to deal with a civil war, and Lor'themar, he did not want to send his people off to war again. Sylvanas, she made sure that they would carry their weight in the horde, and she paid a little visit to Lor'themar. Have you forgotten who's responsible for the state of Quel'thelas in the first place? Who is ultimately to blame? She searched his face for a reply, and when he gave none, she continued. Well, I at least have not. My vengeance will not be denied, and you will give me what I demand of you. The Sin'dorei Rangers and Magi, as well as the Blood Knights. We cannot spare them, Sylvanas. Her flaking lips curled into a sneer. Then you can hide here like a beaten dog, if that is indeed your will, Lor'themar. Though if you believe anything can come from it, you are a fool. Do you think Arthas will be content to ignore you whilst you wait here and lick your wounds? Do you think I will tolerate such cowardice? I would warn you, those who do not stand with the Forsaken stand against them, and those who stand against the Forsaken will not stand long. For a while now, my people have stood guard in these lands, and it is by my hand that you have any place within the hordes. You will aid us in Northrend, or I shall cease to aid you in Quel'thelas. Lor'themar, he had no choice, and he devoted his people to a new war. In Northrend, the bulk of the horde led by Garrosh assaulted the land starting from the Borean Tundra, while Sylvanas and the Forsaken, they attacked from the Howling Fjords. Under the name of the Hand of Vengeance, they worked on perfecting the plague, while also taking the land. The campaign against the Lich King, it seemed to be going fine, the Alliance and Horde were even worked together, but at the Wrathgate, Sylvanas would be betrayed by Grand Apothecary Putris.
Take the lead! For Lordaeron! For the Alliance! Back, you mindless wretches! Fight on, brothers!
Rise up, sons of the Horde! Blood and glory await us! Luntargar! For the Horde!
I was wondering if you'd show up.
I couldn't let the Alliance have all the fun today.
The blood of your father, of your people, demands justice! Come forth, coward, and answer for your crimes!
You speak of justice, of cowardice. I will show you the justice of the grave and the true meaning of fear.
Enough talk! Let it be finished!
You will pay for all the lives you've stolen, traitor!
Boldly stated, but there is nothing you can... What? Did you think we had forgotten? Did you think we had forgiven? Behold now the terrible vengeance of the Forsaken! Sylvanas. Death to the Scourge! And death to the living! Now, all can see. This is the hour of the Forsaken.
We're finished. No escape for any of us.
The plague she and her people had worked on for years had fallen into the wrong hands, and Putris used the plague against the Scourge, the Alliance, and even the Hordes. Varimafras and Putris, they worked together in overthrowing their queen, and they took the Undercity right beneath her nose. This meant that Sylvanas, she had to secure her home base before she would be able to deal with Arthas. Together with Thrall, Vol'jin, and several members of the Horde, they charged into the Undercity, and they took on Varimafras, who was busy trying to summon something into Azeroth.
Welcome to my kingdom of darkness. Did you enjoy my minion's terrible creation? Potent, is it not? But enough prattling. You wish to reclaim your city. Come then, heroes. Your souls will fuel the host. You will have this place back in pieces.
What have they done to my beautiful city? The only redemption for the traitors responsible for this will be an agonizing death. My vengeance will be swift and without mercy.
Lead the way, Dark Lady. We will follow.
Very well, War Chief. The royal quarter is this way. Stay on guard. There is no telling what Varimafras and Putris have in store for us.
What is this?
Welcome to your future. What little there is left of it.
May my aim be true.
Too long. Tireless, endless planning. It will not end like this. One more time. The Master is near. Such power. Can you not feel it, mortals? Cease this foolishness and join me. I will not fail. Not again. I cannot hold. Destabilizing.
You have failed me, Varimafras.
1,000 pardons, Master. I will deal with these intruders myself.
The voice files that you hear while fighting Varimafras, they are named after Sargeras, so it seems likely that the Dreadlord, he never truly gave up his connection to the Legion, and he was trying to summon Sargeras into Azeroth.
Years wasted.
The Alliance, they were also struck by this betrayal, and they had their own reasons for assaulting the Undercity. They took on Putris, and at the end, Varian and Thrall, they nearly went at each other. Jaina, she was able to teleport Varian and the Alliance away from the city before more damage was done. Thrall gave the Undercity back to Sylvanas, but he had learned his lesson. He left behind several of his Kor'kron to guard the city, while also keeping an eye on the Dark Lady to make sure that something like the Wrathgates would never happen again. Undercity was secure once more, so it was time for Sylvanas to make her way to Northrend and confront the Lich King. Together with Horde adventurers, she made her way into the frozen halls deep inside Icecrown Citadel.
The Argent Crusade and the Knights of the Ebon Blade have assaulted the gates of the Icecrown Citadel and are preparing for a massive attack upon the Scourge. Our mission is a bit more subtle, but equally as important. With the attention of the Lich King turned towards the front gate, we'll be working our way through the side, in search of information that will enable us to defeat him, once and for all. Our scouts have reported that the Lich King has a private chamber outside of the Frozen Throne, deep within a place called the Halls of Reflection. That is our target, champions. We will cut a swath of destruction through this cursed place, and find a way to enter the Halls of Reflection. If there is anything of value to be found here, it will be found in the halls. The Dark Lady watches over you. Make haste. Soldiers of the Horde, attack!
Your last waking memory will be of agonizing pain.
Pathetic weaklings.
Wait, stop. Don't kill me. Please, I'll tell you everything.
Why should the Banshee Queen spare your miserable life?
What you seek is in the Master's lair, but you must destroy Tyrannus to gain entry. Now, within the Halls of Reflection, you will find Frostmourne. It holds the truth.
Frostmourne? The Lich King is never without his blade. If you are lying to me...
I swear it's true! Please don't kill me!
Worthless gnat. Death is all that awaits you.
No!
Do not think that I shall permit you entry into my master's sanctum so easily. Pursue me if you dare.
A fitting end for a traitor. Come, we must free the slaves and see what is within the Lich King's chamber for ourselves. I don't believe it. Frostmourne stands before us, unguarded, just as the gnome claimed. Come, heroes. Standing this close to the blade that ended my life. And the pain, it is renewed. I dare not touch it. Stand back, as I attempt to commune with the blade. Perhaps our salvation lies within.
Careful, girl. I've heard talk of that cursed blade saving us before. Look around you, and see what has been born of Frostmourne.
Uther the Lightbringer. How?
You haven't much time. The Lich King sees what the sword sees. He will be here shortly.
The Lich King is here? Then my destiny shall be fulfilled on this day.
You cannot defeat the Lich King. Not here. You would be a fool to try. He will kill those that follow you and raise them as powerful soldiers of the Scourge. But for you, Sylvanas, his reward for you would be worse than the last.
There must be a way.
Perhaps, but know this. There must always be a Lich King. Alas, the only way to defeat the Lich King is to destroy him at the place where he was created.
The Frozen Throne.
Aye. Oh! He is coming. You must, Paladin. So, you wish to commune with the dead. You shall have your wish. Volric Marwyn.
As you wish, my lord.
Soldiers of Lordaeron, rise to meet your master's call.
You will not escape me that easily, Arthas. I will have my vengeance.
I will not make the same mistake again, Sylvanas. This time, there will be no escape. You will all serve me in death.
He's too powerful. Heroes, quickly, come to me. We must leave this place immediately. I will do what I can to hold him in place while we flee.
There is no escape. Death's cold embrace. Away.
No wall can hold the Banshee Queen. Keep the undead at bay, heroes. I will tear this barrier down. Blasted dead end. So this is how it ends. Prepare yourselves, heroes. For today, we make our final stand.
Nowhere to run. You're mine now.
Fire! Fire! Get on board, now! This whole mountainside could collapse at any moment.
We are safe, for now. His strength has increased tenfold since our last battle. It will take a mighty army to destroy the Lich King. An army greater than even the Horde can rouse.
Arthas, fully merging with the Lich King, had increased his powers, and Sylvanas was no match for him on her own. It is up to the Horde and the Alliance to tear down the walls of Icecrown and bring the king to his knees.
Now I stand, the lion before the lambs, and they do not fear. They cannot fear.
Those that have done the Shadowmourne questline and actually defeated Arthas with this weapon, they're able to get a special item after defeating the Lich King. One of these items is a vial of blood from Sylvanas, and upon returning this to her, she says,
So, it is done. I had not dared to trust my senses. Too many times has the Lich King made me to be a fool. Finally, he has been made to pay for the atrocities he imposed upon my people. May Azeroth never fail to remember the horrible price we paid for our weakness, for our pride. But what now, hero? What of those freed from his grasp, but still shackled to their mortal coils? Leave me. I have much to ponder.
What now indeed? Sylvanas' storyline up to this point was all about getting revenge, and with Arthas taken out, that's exactly what she got. Sylvanas, she made her way to the top of Icecrown after these events, and she found out that a new Lich King was placed upon the throne. Bolvar Fordragon had taken up the burden to be the jailer of the damned, but all of it no longer mattered to Sylvanas. None of it mattered anymore, her undead life's goal was complete, so Sylvanas, she looked down and she saw liberation. Sylvanas, she threw herself from the top of Icecrown, and she embraced the cold hands of death, but the Valkyr, they had other plans in mind for Sylvanas. They showed Sylvanas visions of her past, how she used to be and how she used to use her troops. To her, they were arrows in a quiver, shot out to accomplish her goals. They also showed her how her Forsaken were the same to her, arrows aimed at Arthas' heart. They also showed her visions of a possible future where Garrosh, he used the bulk of the Forsaken to take down Gilneas. They showed her how the Alliance retook the capital city of Lordaeron and how her people threw themselves into bonfires. Again, all of it didn't matter to Sylvanas. All she wanted was to escape this eternal torment, and she threw herself off the top of Icecrown. The Valkyr, they tried to stop her. They tried to keep her in limbo and offer her a choice. These visions were not to judge Sylvanas, but they were to show her what could happen to her people. Let them perish, Sylvanas cried. I am finished with them. The Valkyr had no choice, and they let Sylvanas go and see for herself what the afterlife had in store. Lady Sylvanas Windrunner tumbled in a free fall. Not in the physical sense. Her body had been obliterated at the foot of Icecrown Citadel. It was her spirit that tumbled, lost like a rudderless ship in a storm. How had she gotten here? She couldn't remember. Had she been killed by Arthas? Had she committed suicide? Had she been sent to judgments by the Valkyr? Time was meaningless here. Her whole life seemed not a series of events, but a single instant, a pinpoint flash of consciousness in an infinite void. She saw only darkness. And then she felt, truly felt, for the first time in a long while. She recoiled in agony. Here she was, her spirit once again feeling whole, only to feel it suffer. To feel once more, only to feel abject pain, cold, hopelessness, fear. There were others in the darkness, things she didn't recognize, because nothing so terrible could exist in the world of the living. Claws tore at her, but she had no mouth with which to scream. Eyes looked at her, but she couldn't look back. Regrets. She sensed a familiar presence, recognized it, the taunting voice that had once held her in its grasp. Arthas Menethil here? His essence rushed to her, desperate, then shrank away in horrified recognition. The boy who would be Lich King, just a scared little blonde child, reaping the aftermath of a lifetime of mistakes. If any part of Sylvanas' soul were not at that moment torn and tormented, she might have even felt, for the first time, the slightest glimmer of pity for him. In the grand landscape of all the world's suffering and all the evils of the infinite, the Lich King was insignificant. Now the others had her, surrounded her, gleeful, tormenting, tearing at her consciousness, delighting in her suffering. Horror. This was to be her eternity, the endless void, the dark, unknown realm of anguish. Hell, or at least Warcraft's version of hell, that's what waits for Sylvanas on the other side. The 9 Valkyrs, still bound to Lich King will, they came down for her and they offered her a choice. They would join Sylvanas, in exchange they would be free of Bolvar's will, and they would even take her place in hell, as they would be forever bound together. Not only would the Valkyr keep Sylvanas alive, they would also give her the power to resurrect the dead into new forces for the Forsaken. Sylvanas agreed to the pact with the Valkyr, and the first of them took her place in hell, as Sylvanas carved out a new destiny for her and the Forsaken. They would no longer simply be arrows in a quiver, now they were her bulwark against the infinite. Together with her 8 remaining Valkyr, Sylvanas intends to never return to the hell that she had witnessed.
I dearly hope that there's a special place in hell waiting for you, Arthas.
We may never know, Uther. I intend to live forever.
Though Lady Sylvanas and her Forsaken finally took vengeance upon their hated enemy, the Lich King, their dark crusade in Northrend proved costly. Betrayed by Grand Apothecary Putrus at the Battle of Wrathgate, the Forsaken's devious plague of death was unleashed upon both the Alliance and the Horde to calamitous effect. Unbeknownst to Sylvanas, Putrus and his demonic ally, Veramathras, had taken control of the Undercity. As a result, the Forsaken were wrongly blamed for the traitor's atrocities. Though the Undercity was eventually retaken, Sylvanas and her followers still bear the weight of Putrus' sins. Mistrusted by the other members of the Horde, the Forsaken must now prove their loyalty to the cause and redeem themselves from their supposed treachery. To this end, Sylvanas has bolstered her defenses within the Tirisfal Glades and readied her undead forces for any contingency. As one of the Forsaken, you must use your cunning and viciousness to slay any who would pose a threat to Sylvanas' rule, be they human, undead, or otherwise.
In one of the visions shown by the Valkyr, Sylvanas saw how Garrosh was throwing away Forsaken troops in order to take Quel'thelas. Upon returning, Sylvanas told the war chief that they would take Quel'thelas, but they would do it her way. No one would squander her Forsaken away. She needed them as a bulwark against the infinite, and not even the war chief would take them away from her. To understand the battle at Quel'thelas, we'll have to talk a little bit about the history of Quel'thelas and their people. Quel'thelas built their gigantic wall around their city sometime after the Second War, so sometime after the first Horde invasion was defeated. It was part of the Alliance of Lordaeron, and their leader Gan Greymane, he placed his support with the other leaders. Greymane was not much of a team player though, and he would rather spend his money on defending his own kingdom and his own people than working together with the rest, but he didn't go as far as betraying the Alliance. The Alliance, they would eventually win the war against against the Horde, and over time their allegiances would weaken. Greymane took it one step further, and he built a massive wall around his city, allowing no one to set foot in his land, so they wouldn't have to concern themselves with other people's problems. His wall was very mighty, but not strong enough to stand against the Scourge and Arvids. When the undead roamed the land, Gilnean's forces tried to stop them, but they were decimated. Desperate, Greymane asked Archmage Arugal for aid, and Arugal, he summoned the Worgen to attack the Scourge. The Worgen were summoned from the Emerald Dream, where they were placed many years ago by Malfurion Stormrage himself. These Worgen, they actually used to be druids who tried to contain their powers of the demigod Goldrin, but instead of containing the powers, they lost themselves to the Fury. Their bites would even spread the Worgen curse to other people, and Malfurion, he saw no other way than to place them in hibernation within the dream. At first, the plan worked great. The summoned Worgen were a great fighting force against the Scourge, but then the Worgen, they turned around and they attacked Gilnean people, slowly spreading their curse through the city. These Worgen were led by Ralar Fangfire, also known as Alpha Prime, the first of the druids who had turned into a Worgen. He had infiltrated Gilneas through tunnels under the Greymane wall, and he was searching for the Scythe of Elune, which he could use to summon more of his Worgen brothers and sisters from the Emerald Dream. With these additional Worgen, he planned to assault their nests and take revenge upon Malfurion, and to this end, he allied himself with the Forsaken and their assault against Gilneas. The invasion of Gilneas took place in several stages, and it's a little bit too big to cover all the little details, but I will do my best. At first, as I just told you, Geralt threw the Forsaken at the Gilnean wall, but the wall was able to hold. Alpha Prime, he attacked the city with his Worgen, to which King Greymane allied himself with Lord Darius Crowley. Darius had led a rebellion against Greymane in the past, and he was imprisoned because of this, but Greymane, he still saw him as a friend, and the city needed his help. Together, they fought back against the Worgen assault, but Crowley, he realized that the only way for the citizens to survive would be to evacuate them all to Duskhaven. He and his forces stayed behind to keep the Worgen distracted, while Greymane and the rest of their people evacuated. Crowley's sacrifice saved many lives that day, but at the price of him becoming a Worgen himself. The royal alchemist of King again Greymane had managed to create a potion which allowed the Worgen to regain their sanity and take control over their actions, even if it was for just a little while. These liberated Worgens, they joined the Gilnean's forces, and even though Alpha Prime had taken the city, their walls were holding. That was until the Cataclysm hit the world of Azeroth. It shattered the Greymane wall and even the natural defenses around the city. This allowed the Forsaken to not only invade from the land, but they could also assault from the sea. The Worgen, they were no pushovers though, and their forces led by Prince Liam Greymane and Lord Vincent Godfrey, they were able to put up a fierce resistance. Unfortunately for them, the Cataclysm was not over yet, and they had to evacuate Duskhaven before the land was consumed by the sea. The survivors, they fled to Blackwald, where they found the Night Elves led by Belrisa Starbreeze. Belrisa had actually been there when the first of the druids assumed their Worgen forms, and she offered her assistance and knowledge with restoring the balance between man and beast. The potion that was given to the Gilneans, it would not last forever, but the Night Elves ritual would restore the balance and would allow the Gilneans to hold control over their Worgen forms. Crowley had already made his way to the Night Elves, and he informed adventurers that the Forsaken had gotten their hands on the Scythe of Elune. This artifact would allow them to hold control over the Worgen, so they had to reclaim the item before it was lost forever. A pack of Worgen, led by Tobias Mistmantle, they distracted the Forsaken, while adventurers stole back the Scythe before it could reach Sylvanas. After these events, Godfrey and Greymane, they showed up asking Crowley to join their forces once more. Crowley asked if Greymane requested their aid as a tyrant or as a friend, to which Greymane revealed that he himself had turned into a Worgen, so he was asking this as a friend. Godfrey could not handle his king being one of the cursed Worgens, so he made his plans of his own. He captured Greymane with the intention of using him as a bargaining chip with the Forsaken. The adventurers, they came to the rescue once more and they liberated the king, to which Godfrey decided that it was better to be dead than to serve under a Worgen. After liberating and recruiting as many of the people as they could, Greymane and Liam got ready to fight for their city. The prince himself led their forces against the troops of the Forsaken as they fought their way to the heart of the city. There, Sylvanas herself showed up on the battlefield, planning to use a poisoned arrow on the king himself, but his son jumped in front of the shot and he died in his father's arms. Sylvanas retreated, and she met with General Warhol, who was sent by Garrosh to keep an eye on the Forsaken.
It appears you're losing control of Gilneas, Sylvanas. Garrosh fears he's going to have to carry out this invasion himself.
You can assure Garrosh that this is a minor setback. Our victory in Quel'thelas will be absolute.
You sound very confident, Your Majesty. I seriously hope you do not plan to use the plague. Garrosh has explicitly forbidden it.
You do well to watch your tone, General. Neither you nor Garrosh have anything to worry about. We've ceased all production of the plague, as he ordered. We'd never deploy it without his permission.
I will deliver my report to our leader, then. By your leave, my lady.
Go with honor, General.
My lady, should I order my men to stop the deployment of the plague? Or are we to continue as planned?
What kind of question is that? Of course we're deploying the plague, as planned. Let the Gilneans enjoy their small victory. Not even their bones will remain by tomorrow.
As you wish.
Tobias Mismental, he heard the entire conversation, and he made sure to evacuate the city before they would all fall to the plague. Quel'thelas was left in ruins, but its citizens had survived as they sailed away on boats delivered to them by the Night Elves. A new alliance was formed. They would return to fight another day, while the Quel'thelas Liberation Front, led by Darius Crowley, remained behind to try and retake Quel'thelas from the Forsaken forces. Meanwhile, Sylvanas, she presented the war chief with her new allies.
Goodbye.
Where is that ogre-headed buffoon? Ah, speak of the devil.
This better be important, Sylvanas. You know how I detest this place and its foul stench. Why have you called for me? And more importantly, what are those Scourge fiends doing here?
War Chief, so glad you could make it. With the death of the Lich King, many of the more intelligent Scourge became unemployed. Those fiends, as you so delicately put it, are called Valkyr. They are under my command now. And they are part of the reason that I asked to see you.
Get on with it, Sylvanas!
Very well, War Chief. I have solved the plight of the Forsaken. As a race, we Forsaken are unable to procreate. With the aid of the Valkyr, we are now able to take the corpses of the fallen and create new Forsaken. Agatha, show the War Chief.
What you have done here, Sylvanas, it goes against the laws of nature. Disgusting is the only word I have to describe it.
War Chief, without these new Forsaken, my people would die out. Our hold upon Quel'thelas and Northern Lordaeron would crumble.
Have you given any thought to what this means, Sylvanas? What difference is there between you and the Lich King now?
Isn't it obvious, War Chief? I serve the Horde.
Watch your clever mouth, bitch! Chromosh, you stay behind and make sure the Banshee Queen is well guarded. I will be expecting a full report when next we meet. Remember, Sylvanas, eventually we all have to stand before our Maker and face judgment. Your day may come sooner than others.
Garrosh is obviously not pleased with Sylvanas' actions, but she doesn't care what the war chief had to say. The Valkyr are now her most powerful allies, able to resurrect the fallen and make them fight for the Banshee Queen, something Sylvanas makes full use of as the war against Quel'thelas and the rest of the area continued. The Valkyr, they were deployed to convert the humans at Fenris Isle into Forsaken. But Crowley, he made use of this attack by offering the humans their Worgen blood. Embracing the Worgen curse would make the humans immune to the Valkyr's magic, and it would prevent them from being turned into Forsaken. Even though they hated the idea to become Worgen, they still accepted it, since it was better than to be turned into the undead. Around this time, Greymane had made his way to Stormwind and he allied with the Alliance. King Varian Rin, he realized the threat of the Forsaken and he deployed some of his finest troops to the liberation of Gilneas. The 7th Legion was sent out to take back the city and they were actually successful, but Sylvanas, she had more plans in mind. She had adventurers recover the corpse of Lord Vincent Godfrey, the same Godfrey who threw himself off the cliff, while our own troops recovered his lieutenants, Lord Walden and Baron Ashbury. They were resurrected as Forsaken, and Godfrey seemed to be more than willing to serve the Dark Lady. He had always said that it was better to be dead than to serve as a Worgen, so he had no problem with being resurrected as an undead. The adventurers, they were then put on the task of taking Ambermill, one of the last Dalaran settlements in the land. A rumor had it that the mages at Ambermill, they were waiting for more Alliance reinforcements before turning on the Forsaken, so they had to be taken out before they became a bigger threat. They too were turned to the undead, adding more and more forces to Sylvanas, her army. The 7th Legion and the Worgen were not yet defeated though, and Godfrey and his men were set on the task of collecting Lorna Crowley, daughter of Lord Darius Crowley, who was leading the Gneis Liberation Front. Lorna, she was still unaffected by the Worgen curse, which meant that she was still vulnerable to Sylvanas and her Valkyr. Sylvanas went as far as to threaten Crowley, and she told him that if they wouldn't hand over Gilneas, that she would turn Lorna into one of her Forsaken. Crowley had no choice, and he surrendered the city to Sylvanas, and the Dame seemed to be won. However, Godfrey had other plans in mind. He shot Sylvanas point blank in her back, ending her life, and while the orc Kromash and the adventurers present, they quickly overpowered Godfrey, he did manage to retreat all the way back to Shadowfang Keep. The Valkyr had made the pact for Sylvanas, and they worked on bringing her back to life. The first time that Sylvanas had killed herself, only one Valkyr had to take her place, but apparently that Valkyr was far more powerful than the rest of them. This time, it took all 3 of them to bring Sylvanas back, but they were successful and Sylvanas came back from hell. She was furious at Godfrey and swore that she would get her revenge as she made her way back to the Undercity to recover. Godfrey, he was taken out in the Shadowfang Keep dungeon, while Gilneas to this day is still being fought over. Blizzard hasn't made an official story about this, but several tweets from reliable sources suggest that even though Crowley surrendered, several of his people did not. They still battled over the future of Gilneas, which we see in the battleground. Later on, we have Creed who shows up. He was part of the Rogue Legendary questline. Riffion, he sends rogues to take him out, and Creed's forces left the city for a safer place. Time will tell who might hold Gilneas in the future. For now, it's still disputed. More territories would be conquered by the Forsaken, amongst them the town of Southshore, which was obliterated with the use of the plague. However, the final battle that I want to talk about is the battle at Enderhall. Both the Alliance and the Horde, they fought over this territory, not only with each other, but also with some of the remaining Scourge forces. The Alliance, they were led by the Death Knight Vasarian, while the Horde was led by Coltra Deathweaver, and those who've made a Death Knight before know that these two are very friendly towards each other. They meet on the battlefield, and after taking out Dark Master Gandling together, they decide to retreat and regroup their forces. Vasarian, he warns his old friends that they are brothers no longer. Both of them, they've allied themselves with either the Alliance or the Horde, and eventually they will have to face each other on the battlefield for the fate of Enderhall. We're told not to say a word about their little arrangements, but Sylvanas is no fool. Disguised as Lindsay Ravenson, she sends adventurers on the quest to use her Valkyr and convert the local farmers into Forsaken troops. The Alliance also recruits and trains farmers to help with the battle, and these farmers attack first, despite Vasarian's orders. It doesn't matter to Sylvanas though. She has seen enough of Coltra's weakness, and she sends out her own troops together with the Valkyr to take on the Alliance. Even though the Alliance was able to defeat the Valkyr, the battle at Enderhall was still lost. There were simply too many troops for take the city, and the Forsaken had won. Despite their victory, Sylvanas was not pleased. The battle should have been over days ago when they defeated the Scourge, so she grabs Coltra and she sends him to the Undercity. Arthas apparently had failed with creating his Death Knight. Sylvanas found them to be far too weak, but when she's finished with him, his weakness will be gone. Unfortunately for us, this storyline is left unfinished. Vasarian says that he will go to Tearsfall to find out what happened to Coltra and to take on the Dark Lady, but so far we haven't heard a thing about this. Who knows what Sylvanas is doing with Coltrane Undercity, but what we do know for certain is that the battle for Enderhall cost Sylvanas one of her Valkyr. The Alliance lost the city, but the Dark Lady is one step closer to the afterlife she desperately wants to avoid. Now, after these events, Sylvanas and the Forsaken would take a step back, as the story of the Cataclysm would focus more on Thrall and the Dragon aspects, while Mr. Pandaria opened up with the bombing of Faramore. War Chief Garrosh Hellscream has the Horde attack Faramore. He asked of them to gather their armies, and Sylvanas sent some of her forces, led by Captain Frendis Farley. She didn't join the battle herself though, and as most of you know by now, the armies gathered were merely to draw out as many of the Alliance forces as they could, so they could wipe them all out with a single bomb created from the focusing iris. This was one of the first steps of Garrosh using dishonorable tactics, of him pissing off the other leaders of the Horde, and when he had his people assassinate Vol'jin, it was time for action. Vol'jin led the rebellion against Garrosh and his true Horde, while the Alliance and the rest of the Horde leaders, they joined for the siege of Orgrimmar. During the siege, we see Sylvanas herself during the Warlord Zela encounter, and just before the encounter, she makes an interesting offer to Lor'themar.
Bladefist Bay is fortified! By the Sunwhirl, we're getting slaughtered. Heroes, port over to the docks and take out their shore defenses. Put a stop to this bloodshed.
I can raise your dead, Regent Lord. Your rangers can fight again.
Sylvanas, you will leave our corpses alone, or I will deal with you here and now.
I'm sorry to see your lack of commitment. What of the human corpses?
Well, I suppose that's between you and the Alliance, isn't it?
Rise, my angels. Let your screams fill the streets of Orgrimmar with terror.
She offers to raise Lor'themar's fallen rangers, Blood Elves, which implies that her Valkyr can resurrect more than just humans. Obviously, Lor'themar doesn't want her anywhere near their fallen, so Sylvanas, she focuses her attention on Warlord Zela. After Garrosh is defeated, a new war chief has to be appointed, and Vol'jin steps up and he takes on the mantle of war chief. Sylvanas doesn't object, but she does have her own things to say about it. She says the following: War Chief Vol'jin, does it sound absurd to you? I, for one, certainly won't be taking orders from a troll. But he put this little coalition together and won the day. He's also proven to be impossible to kill. I admire that. Time to test what he's made of. Sylvanas obviously respects Vol'jin's strength, but she won't be taking orders. Lor'themar says, I find politics exhausting. I'm confident Vol'jin will take us where we need to go. Lor'themar glances over to Sylvanas, assuming he can hold this horde together. Lor'themar knows what's up with Sylvanas. She's offering to raise his dead now. He knows that within the horde, Sylvanas could become a severe problem, and he hopes that Vol'jin will be able to keep it all together. We're going to talk about the possible future for Sylvanas in just a moment. First, we have to cover the event in War Crimes. War Crimes takes place after the siege of Orgrimmar, in which Garrosh is placed on trial. The August Celestials are his jury, Torrhenzu is his judge, and the Horde and Alliance each have to present one member to either defend Garrosh or make clear that he deserves death. Sylvanas offers herself to be Garrosh's defender, since it's well known that she often disagreed with Garrosh. The Alliance would never accuse her of going soft, but Vol'jin declines the offer. They're looking for someone to defend Garrosh, and Sylvanas, she would be a great accuser, but she couldn't offer Garrosh a fair defense, not the one the Celestials are looking for. In the end, it's decided that Tyrande becomes the accuser, while Bane needs to do his best to try and defend Garrosh. Sylvanas couldn't believe that it would actually go with this farce of a trial, but Bane actually did his best to honor his war chief's request and defend Garrosh. He did such a good job that Sylvanas lost her temper as they made their way out of court. She even went as far as to call Bane a bootlicking Alliance sympathizer, but that was one step too far. Bane, the powerful warrior, sees Sylvanas by her arm, and she realized that if he wanted to, he could snap her arm like a twig. I am not an Alliance sympathizer, he said in a deep, calm voice. Nor do I lick boots. Vol'jin told Bane to let Sylvanas go, and he explained to Sylvanas that Bane was just doing what he, the war chief, had asked of him. Her wish of seeing Garrosh dead would come, she just had to let it come in its own time. But Sylvanas had no intention of sitting around and waiting. She knew that even the slightest chance of Garrosh getting away with his head on his shoulders was too much, so she started to think of a plan to make death come on her terms. Just as she was pondering these thoughts, a messenger arrived giving her a scroll and a small package. Once we were on the same same side. Perhaps we can be again, was the message on the scroll. Inside the package, Sylvanas found a necklace similar to the one brought back to her by adventurers. The inscription was also similar to her own necklace, only this one was addressed to her younger sister. To Verisa, with love, Illyria. The Windrunner reunion fans had waited for years had finally happened. Verisa had heard rumors about Sylvanas, of course, but she'd never truly dealt with it. The trial was the first time that the two Windrunner sisters locked eyes again, and Verisa had made contact for one simple reason, making sure that Garrosh would not survive the trial. The sisters met up at Windrunner Spire in the Ghostlands, where Verisa told Sylvanas that poison would be the best way to go. Garrosh was under heavy guard, so an assassin would not be able to reach him, but even prisoners have to eat. Sylvanas would supply the poison, while Verisa would put it in Garrosh's meal, but before any planning and scheming could happen, Sylvanas had to know. She had to know why Verisa, who had married a human, had found a home with the Alliance, was now going against the very laws upheld by that faction. Verisa tried to lie at first, tried to hide away from the real reason, but eventually the truth came out. He took my Ronin. That was all. That was everything. Sylvanas stepped forward and embraced her sister, and Verisa clung to her like the drowning woman she was. Sylvanas and Verisa made their plans to poison Garrosh, and as they did, they grew closer. Sylvanas felt emotions she hadn't felt in years, and she realized that she'd been very lonely. One day, she even asked Verisa to join her in the Undercity. Together, they could make their own laws and crush any who would stand in their way. Verisa actually accepted Sylvanas' offer, but what she didn't know was that Sylvanas planned on killing her and bringing her back to life. The Forsaken would not be willing to follow the orders from one of the living, and in death, Verisa would see the world as Sylvanas did. They would never have to be lonely again, and at first, Verisa seemed to be more than willing to join Sylvanas in the Undercity, until she remembered her two children. She had been so focused on getting revenge that she didn't stop to think that the Undercity would be no place for her two growing boys. They would have to be left behind, and it would be the memory of her two sons that would ruin all their plans. Verisa had poisoned Garrosh's meal, just as they had planned, but when she made her way back, she ran into Anduin, who was just about to go and talk with Garrosh. Anduin reminded Verisa of her sons, and she saw this moment as the light being at work. She told Anduin that she had poisoned Garrosh's meal, and it was up to him to decide whether or not to warn him. With that information, she left Anduin behind, and she made her way back to Dalaran to hold her two beautiful boys, and naturally, Anduin did the only thing he could. He slapped a bowl of food out of Garrosh's hands just before he was about to eat. It would be up to the Celestials to decide what to do with Garrosh, and poison like this was not the way to go. A messenger was sent by Anduin to Verisa with the news what he had done, and she said, "Tell him Ronin thanks him." Sylvanas was also informed about her sister's action, and she wasn't as pleased. She felt betrayed by her little sister, and she rode out into the forest to vent her frustration to murder any that were unlucky enough to cross her path. Sylvanas fell to her knees, she buried her face in her hands, and she wept like a broken child who had lost everything. Little moon. Gradually, the sobbing ceased, and the familiar peace of coldness drove out the heated hurting. Sylvanas rose, licking blood from her lips. She should have known the pain she had felt at first, when she dared foolishly permit herself to hope for something different from what she had now, to feel something for another, to feel love again. It had been a warning that she was no longer made for feelings such as hope, or love, or trust, or joy. These things were for the living, these things were for the weak. In the end, they would slip through her fingers, trickling away like the violet remnants of Jaina Proudmoore's apprentice Kindy, and she would be left alone. Again and always. Calmed now through her tears and slaughter, she remounted her horse. Sylvanas Windrunner, the Banshee Queen of the Forsaken, would never again make the mistake of believing she could love.
Children of the grave, heed my call. In life, we suffered unspeakable tragedies. We watched as our homes were razed to the ground. We cried out in agony as our families were cut down before our eyes. Finally, in the face of such atrocities, we were denied even the release of death. Now, we burn this wicker man as a symbol of our victory against old enemies. We paint our faces with the ash to send a message to new enemies A declaration to those who fear and revile us as monsters. To those who would question our place in this world, we are not monsters. We are not the mindless wretches of a ghoul army. No! We are a force even more terrifying. We are a chill in a coward's spine. We are the instruments of an unyielding ire. We are the Forsaken. Plans? Little old me? What sort of plans could I possibly have?
We left the full version at the Warlords of Draenor time periods, where Sylvanas, she didn't play a major part while dealing with the Iron Horde on alternate Draenor. Then, to some shock and surprise, it was not War Chief Vol'jin leading the charge onto the Broken Shore to try and stop the biggest Legion invasion as of yet. Rather, it was the Banshee Queen featured in that awesome cinematic.
But from you, I have learned patience, tolerance, and faith.
The Alliance and Horde have decided to work together on this one, with our initial strike force soon backed up by others, including Heroes of Azeroth. Time is of the essence though, but unknown to all is that this is a death trap. There is no way that we can win while the portal at the Tomb of Sargeras is still active.
We'll take the ridge and cover your flank.
Sylvanas, thank you.
Good luck, Varian.
And you.
As the Alliance confronts Gul'dan and the demons directly down below. The Horde, they try to cover their flank, but like I said, the might of the Legion, it's simply too much.
There are too many of them.
Everyone, pull back to me! We make our stand here!
They're coming from behind! Goblin of Flame!
War Chief!
Do not let the Horde die this day. Get! Get! My lord! Push forward! And get Windrunner's archers to clear the skies!
Again, has clearly not forgotten how Sylvanas and the Forsaken took his city and took his son's life. He knew that trusting her, working together with the Horde, that it was a big mistake. And here, his worst fears are realized. A few years later, Anduin would actually meet up with Sylvanas, ask her if she betrayed his father, if what went down here was a planned move, and Sylvanas stiffened. Anduin's heart sped up, slamming against his chest. It was not a question that he had intended to ask, but it was the one he needed. He had to know if Gen Greymane was right. If Sylvanas had set up his father and the Alliance army to die. Later, she would question her choice in responding. But in this moment, she had no desire to offer falsehood. Varian Rin's destiny was set in stone, little lion. The Legion's numbers would have seen to that, whatever choice I made that day. His blue eyes searched hers for the lie, and he found none. That doesn't take away that at this moment, some amongst the Alliance, like Gen and Jaina Proudmoore, they're pretty pissed at the Horde, seemingly abandoning them on the Broken Shore, and they're out for blood. Meanwhile, the Horde is spending their last moments with War Chief Vol'jin, a war chief that, sadly, got to do very little for the story before the demons took him out.
Windrunner, come forward.
War Chief?
The lower spirits
say death will claim me soon.
In the end, death claims us all. But the Horde will live on.
I have never trusted you. Nor would I have ever imagined, in our darkest time, that you would be the one to save us. The spirits have granted me clarity, a vision. They whisper a name. Many will not understand, but you must step out of the shadows and lead. You must be
Vol'jin is dead. Who among you will help me avenge him?
Avenge him we did, by forming mighty order halls, claiming artifacts of legends, and taking the battle to the Burning Legion. But not with a whole lot of aid from now War Chief Sylvanas. Our Banshee Queen, she has her own plans in mind, which we learn from intel found in Azuna. The ship, Queen's Reprisal, was planned to go for Stormheim, but it ended up in a massive storm. And, well, you know, we can see its ultimate fate. The log we find here mentions that the Banshee Queen is going to steal the very power of the V or herself. Intel that's covered up if you do it on the Horde side, or it's brought straight to Lord Greymane when done on the Alliance. And it would be in Stormheim, where the little remnants of the Alliance and Horde conflict played out. The power of the V, that most likely means the power to create more Valkyr. Her bargain with those 9 Valkyr, that is what's keeping her out of Hell. Some of them had to already honor their bargain, take Sylvanas' place in Hell when she died. Now the power to create more Valkyr, it could potentially mean the power to have infinite bonus lives. Or at the very least, it would grant her the power to create more Forsaken. As their race, they're unable to reproduce. So are they destined to just wither away into nothing?
No. The Forsaken will never stop fighting. Not while I reign. Not when there are still beings out there with the power to stop death.
Another cool thing that the Valkyr can do is reshape the body, make it stronger and more enduring. That's the reason why our boy Nephanos got his updated model. There were always rumors of affection and deeper feelings between Nephanos and Sylvanas. And those rumors, they've all been pretty much confirmed in a short story called Dark Mirror. It talks about the time while they were still alive, the love between them. How Nephanos was one of the first that she sought out to free from the Lich King's control. And now, this limited ability of her Valkyr, it's used on Blightcaller specifically, to keep her champion strong, to keep her champion at her side.
For the Dark Lady.
Our adventure takes us into Stormheim, where the Alliance, it seizes its opportunity to attack. We join Nephanos as we try to track down Sylvanas again. But it turns out that she doesn't want us to follow her. Instead, we're told to focus on our main mission, which takes us all the way into Helheim, a domain ruled by Helja. Helheim is a form of afterlife for the Vrykul, but not one that you really want to find yourself in. Whereas the greatest of the Vrykul, they get the party in the halls of valor, the unworthy, they're pulled down here. Being amongst the spirits of the dishonorable, it's not a great place to find yourself. So we set out to meet up with Helja in an attempt to convince her to let us go back to the living world. And it's there where we find the Banshee Queen herself.
Remember our bargain, Banshee. Do not dare cross me.
Ah, my loyal hero. You must not languish here. The Aegis cannot fall into enemy hands. The future of the Horde depends on you and me. Find your way back to Stormheim. I will be waiting. What have we here? Another one of Greymane's mercenaries?
Even back then, we wondered what this deal was all about. And to this day, the full details of their bargain, it hasn't been explained. We know that she was given a soul cage by Helya, one that will show up in just a moment. But we're not exactly sure what Helya wanted in return, nor did it come up later in the expansion. Maybe she wasn't really in a talking mood, since we did confront Helya and defeat her in the Trial of Valor. Potentially a bargain that could play its part in the story in the future. But at this very moment, we need to fight our way out of Helheim, and then we prove our worth to gain entry for the Dark Lady's true prize.
What is this? The hero of Helheim seeks entrance to the vault? I know your worth. I will grant you an audience with Aegir. You may proceed, but know that Aegir may not regard you as I do. Seek your fate in the vault, champion. May Aegir be your wings.
This Aegir is a Titan Watcher, one with the capability of transforming those found worthy into the Valkyr. It's the power to create more of them. The path is open for Sylvanas to claim her prize, while Greymane and the Alliance, they quickly go after her in an attempt to stop her.
Treacherous Banshee! You know not what you are meddling with!
Submit. The Valkyr are mine.
Sylvanas, your quest for immortality has left you vulnerable. I will have my vengeance! For Varian! For Gilneas! For my son!
It seems I overestimated you. Old wolf.
You took my son's future. And now I've taken yours.
And that's pretty much where the faction conflict ended within Legion. Greymane has prevented Sylvanas from enslaving Aegir, but not completely without taking damage. He will need some time to heal from the poison, while Sylvanas regrets that they underestimated Greymane's tenacity. But Aegir cannot hide for long. She will hunt her through the very halls of Valor if she must, which suggests that the Banshee Queen wasn't quite ready to give up on collecting Aegir's power. Again, all of this never really played out. The major faction war in the expansion that was taking towers from one another. Instead, the world focused its attention on defeating that burning legion, a quest that took them all the way to the planet of Argus, rescuing the Titans themselves and imprisoning the Dark Lord of the Legion, Sargeras. But not before he took his massive sword and plunged it into the world. Azeroth is wounded, not just the planet, but also the Titan spirit slumbering inside. All across its surface, Azerite pops up, a brand new resource that's going to...
This will change everything.
I told you!
But before we get the battle for Azeroth and the Fourth War, there were a couple of events that happened before all of that. For the longest of time, fans have wanted to see a Windrunner reunion. Illyria, Verisa and Sylvanas meeting up again, and that wish was finally granted with the Three Sisters comic. Illyria, being the eldest, she had left them behind to join Trevelyan and the Alliance of Lordaeron into Outlands. Her statue stands in the Valley of Heroes with a message from Sylvanas herself before she was turned. Illyria and Trevelyan, they would return into the story during Legion, with the Windrunner sister now controlling the powers of the Void. Powers that constantly whispered to her, try to wrestle control and have her give in. Then for Farisa, she fell in love with the Yuma Ronin and had 2 children with him. This is the husband that she lost at Fedamore. Together with Sylvanas, plans were made to murder Garrosh for this. Plans that Farisa eventually backed out of, which Sylvanas did not appreciate. Quite a lot has happened to the Windrunner sisters, and the void that's whispering to Illyria, it tells her that this one is dangerous, that Sylvanas is a threat and must be ended. Beware this one. She seeks the death of all things, all possibilities. End her threat. Murder her, save yourself and murder her. Save the world and murder her. But the whispers are ignored. Then they play a little game. 2 truths and a lie. 2 statements that ring true, and one of them is a falsehood. With Sylvanas, her first statement is that there are times that she wishes she was still alive. Second, that she is proud to be War Chief of the Horde. The third and final one, that she would never betray her sisters. But unlike the others, the Dark Lady does not reveal which one of those is false or which one is the truth. She holds her cards close to her chest, and we do know that she doesn't care a whole lot about the Horde, so that could have been her lie. That would mean that she sometimes wishes that she was still alive, and that she would never betray her sisters. Except at the end of the comic, we discover that Sylvanas actually had an ambush waiting for her sisters, yet she didn't give the signal to attack. Possibly because Farisa actually acknowledged and apologized for screwing her over with that whole Garrosh thing, or it's because ultimately they will serve her anyways. They will all serve death. Yet the point stands that she was willing to betray her sisters. That could be used to argue that all of her statements were nonsense, just to mess with her sisters' heads. Or, since she didn't betray her sisters, that the statement still rings true. That would mean that the other statement to be true is that she wishes she was still alive. Who knows, really? It's a weird mind game. Then, in Before the Storm, the book that plays out before the storm of war swept over Azeroth once again, we read about Anduin and Sylvanas setting up a meeting to reunite Forsaken with their still living loved ones. An initiative that came from now King Anduin Rin. A plan that Sylvanas wasn't initially down with, but Nephanos was able to convince her. You could use this to your advantage, Nephanos said. Rumor has it that many Forsaken wish their next death to be their last death. They do not wish to keep existing, and one reason commonly cited is that they want to be with those that they loved while they lived. Sylvanas turned her head to him slowly, considering his words. If you authorize this experience, this reconnection with people that they loved in life, and present it to them as something that you have generously granted them, perhaps they will be more amenable to accepting your solution, finding ways to keep the Forsaken as a race from going extinct. It is fraternizing with the enemy, Sylvanas said, letting them interact with life and the living. Perhaps, but even so, it is only for a single day. Give them this hope, this moment with people they thought they'd never see again. Then I hold power to their happiness, at least in this aspect, she finished. Or they might decide that they hate the living and be all the more devoted to their Dark Lady. Either way, Sylvanas would win. And so, under strict rules and supervision, the meeting took place within the Arathi Highlands. It went surprisingly well, all things considered. Forsaken and the living reconnecting, sharing tales, or just being in each other's presence. It went so well, in fact, that some of them never wanted this day to end. They did not wish to return to the Undercity at all, so when they recognized one of the priests as being Kalia Menethil, Kalia being the sister to Arthas Menethil, now living her life as a priest and just there to supervise the meeting, they reached out to her. They asked her to stand with them as they defected from the Dark Lady, and she did, shouting to them to head for the keep, to run away, and Sylvanas, she didn't need a whole lot more reason to unleash her archers. Being careful and smart enough to not slay any of the Alliance that day. She wasn't quite ready for that war yet, but the Forsaken, those that had dared to run away, and even those that had tried to come back to her, they were all slaughtered. Nephanos, normally following her every lead, he was shocked and asked her what she was doing. Some of them were running back here for safety. They were, she agreed. But how much of that was out of fear? How tempted were they until that point? She shook her head. No, Nephanos, I cannot take the risk. The only desolate council members that I trust are the ones who returned to me early on, broken and bitter, truly desolate. All the others, I cannot allow that sentiment, that hope to grow. It is an infection ready to spread. I have to cut it out. And slowly he nodded his head. But there was one human who paid the price that day. Kalia Menethil was personally shot down by the Banshee Queen, as she did not belong to the Alliance. Not exactly the end of her tale though, as she would later be resurrected in the light, with the aid of the Naru, Anduin and Alonce's Val. The Menethil is still alive, but the meeting in Arathi, it was a disaster. There would be no more loved ones reconnecting, and the seeds of peace between the factions that Anduin had tried to grow, well, the boy king realizes that he's been like a farmer, expecting to harvest crops from a poisoned field. It's simply not possible. People can change, but some people will never desire to do so. Sylvanas Windrunner is one of those. I believe, said Anduin Lane Rin, that Sylvanas Windrunner is well and truly lost. You know you've pushed things far if even Anduin gives up on you. But not even the little lion could have foreseen how far the Banshee Queen was going to take things. It is time to use that Azeroth, kick the faction war into overdrive. Now the War Chief knew that she was going to need someone else on her side, someone that the honorable horde would follow into battle. So she had to convince Varrock Saurfang that this was the way to go. Not an easy task to start another war after just having dealt with the Legion. Already they had seen so much loss, and she was no Garrosh. Why did she want to throw the horde into the meat grinder once again? But her reasoning was sound. They might have established bonds right now, but how long would peace with the Alliance actually last? Would it be a year, 2, 5, maybe 10 or 50? If history has shown them anything, is that the Alliance and Horde are really good at starting fights with one another. There's a lot of history, a lot of bad blood. But what if they could actually destroy the Alliance and secure peace for generations to come? Not by 1,000 victories, but simply one. Destroy them from within. Then they could strike peace with the individual nations, carve them away from the Alliance piece by piece. The genius of Sylvanas' strategy, it won Saurfang over. Their plan was to invade Darkshore, occupy Teldrassil so that the Alliance couldn't retaliate, take out a leader of the Night Elves to inflict the wounds that could never heal, create a tide of despair, a wound of battle that would bleed, fester, decay and rot the Alliance from the inside out. A brilliant plan, and everything did seem to be working out for the Hordes. Even the Night Elves, they were just evacuating the tree, preparing for occupation. Saurfang, he went looking for the War Chief, who was in the midst of battle with Malfurion Stormrage. One hit from the back, it was all it took to make her dreams come true. She had everything that she had desired from this invasion right in front of her. All she had to do was claim Malfurion's life, but for some reason, she decided not to. Instead, she passed on the job to Saurfang, who decided not to take the killing blow. His strike had been dishonorable, so he decided to let the druid go, returning empty-handed to his war chief. Now their wounds would heal. Even in this dark hour, they would say, Elune still watches over us. And that was almost certainly true, wasn't it? Elune had intervened. Perhaps she had even stayed Saurfang's killing blow. And she wouldn't be the only force beyond the Alliance to oppose Sylvanas' true objective. And her anger grew cold. She had known that this would happen. It had simply come sooner than expected. That was all. She had to think of a new way to inflict the wound that the death of their leader was supposed to cause.
Life is pain. Hope fails. Now you understand. Don't grieve. You'll soon join your loved ones.
I grieve for you. You've made life your enemy. And that is a war you'll never win. You can kill us, but you cannot kill hope.
Can't I? Burn it. Burn it!
no honor in this. They will come for us now. All of them!
Prepare the blight! Let it rain down upon their armies!
There must be another way, War Chief.
This is no time for sentiment, High Overlord. War demands that we take a more direct approach.
It's killing her own troops. She's raising their bodies. We must evacuate the wounded!
The Blight is too dangerous, my king! We cannot afford to...
The Alliance leaves no soldier behind. Not this time.
My king, our siege towers are lost. Our numbers are waning.
Father, help me. I need your guidance. I need...
The Blight has broken our ranks!
Our assault has been for nothing.
What now?
We end this now.
Keep moving! So good of you to finally show up, High Overlord.
I had to see it for myself. Was this your plan all along? Is this how you meant to achieve victory? This honorless travesty?
Honor means nothing to a corpse, Sarfang. You have the luxury of underestimating death. But it is something with which I am intimately familiar. Maybe you don't care if your people die so long as it's honorable, but to me, this horde is worth saving. Anyone who disagrees does not deserve to stand among us. So die your warrior's death, High Overlord Sarfang. It means little to me. Perhaps I will raise your broken body to serve me once more. Or perhaps you will have a chance to say hello to your son. Champions, with me, you are invited to bear witness to the grand finale.
You abandoned Sauerfang to die out there!
It is the death he wanted. If that troubles you, you're free to join him. Or you can tend to the living. The choice is yours.
For the Horde.
You know what must be done. my champion. Look at you. The boy's playing soldier.
Our king just routed your army!
Muzzle your dog, your majesty.
Sylvanas Windrunner, you have led the Horde to a place without honor. Lordaeron is ours. It's over.
Your father would be so proud. Is that his? You've gotten it all bloody.
Only one of us wanted this war.
You call for peace when it suits you, little lion. But you're quick enough to kill.
I should have killed you when last we met.
How rude, sister. You're a guest in my home.
Your home? You desecrate that throne with your filth! Enough!
You put the torch to Teldrassil. But I failed those who burned. I will not make that mistake again. Surrender. Or die.
You've won nothing.
Despite throwing plan upon plan, trap upon trap against the Alliance, Sylvanas, she's unable to take them out. She just keeps on failing, until ultimately she decides to blow up the entire city, but not even that does the job. She's also showing the Horde that she is a war chief who cares little for honor and all about results. This moment right here, it would set the tone for the rest of Battle for Azeroth. The war chief doing whatever it takes to get the job done. Plans failing, more and more voices rising up, that she is taking him down a dark path, one that the Horde should not, cannot follow. But not all of the Horde agrees with the mindset. Players were actually given a choice to stand with the Banshee Queen during the expansion. Some small choices here and there as to where your true loyalty lies, and while it didn't have a major impact on the overall story, and will probably not have any major implications later down the line, it was still nice to at least have a little bit of agency over your allegiance, especially when you compare it to the days of Garrosh Hellscream. Back then, a lot of players wanted to side with the war chief, and they simply couldn't. At least this time around, there was somewhat of a choice. So, in quick overview as to what went down during Battle for Azeroth with relation to Sylvanas. After the Siege of Lordaeron, there were new allies recruited. The Horde teamed up with the Zandalari trolls after rescuing their princess from the Stormwind Saccades, and they partied in Zandalar. This allegiance, it threw them right into the war with the Alliance, and during the battle for the Zara lore, the Alliance took out the King Rastigan, which meant that Princess Telungi now became Queen Telungi. Unknown to her was that her father had made a bargain with Bwonsamdi, the Loa of Death. The Loa would stand with the king, empower him, but only if his bloodline, all those that succeeded him, would keep this bargain, to serve Bwonsamdi in life and in death. So with the passing of Rastakhan, that deal now passed on to his daughter as well.
Well, since you be so eager to get rid of me, I got a new deal for you. Bring me the head of the Horde's war chief, and I be forgetting all about your father's bargain.
Oh, by the Loa. No, the Horde stood beside us when all seemed lost. I will not repay them with betrayal.
That's your final answer?
It is. My freedom is not worth my honor.
Knowing what we know now, perhaps she should have taken that new deal. Although, you could argue that this was just a test from Bonsamdi. Then in Darkshore, the Night Elves would find the strength to retaliate. Through the Whisperwind, she went through an incredibly dangerous ritual to invoke the dark side of Elune. She became the Night Warrior in a quest for vengeance. Great power was bestowed upon the Priestess of Elune, enough so to kick the Horde out of their lands, take out one of Sylvanas' Valkyr, but not before her forces were able to convert some of the Night Elves into Dark Rangers. The priest artifact from Legion, which is called Zelototh, it showed up again, guiding heroes of the world to the loving embrace of the old god N'Zoth. This old god, he wants to break out of its prison, and he has Horde players bring the blade to Sylvanas, which they do for some reason. This blade, it provides the war chief with a new plan of attack, to wipe out not only the Alliance, but also the rising voices of resentment amongst the Horde. An allegiance is formed with Azora, Queen of the Naga, and supposed ally to N'Zoth.
Enter and behold the greatest of truths. Behold my betrayal and yours.
We have a bargain then. I will bring both fleets crashing to the ocean floor, and your champion will deliver the dagger to me.
And in turn, you will have the key required to free the old god from his bonds, and leave him vulnerable.
You wound me, War Chief. After all, I am as dedicated to my master as you are to your subjects.
Indeed. Just to be certain that once you have what you need, you dispose of your guests. Let none of the heroes escape.
I admire your ruthlessness, Windrunner. It seems our interests are aligned. At present.
At present.
Treacherous Banshee. Do you think I am blind to the darkness you seek to unleash?
Only I can save this world.
But neither Nashatar nor Azora would be able to stop the heroes of the world. Not when they're working together again. We were manipulated in unwillingly helping the old god N'Zoth escape from its prison. Now that's a threat that the world would vanquish as well. But in the case of Sylvanas, we see that the Horde has found the body of Derek Proudmoore, who is the brother of Jaina Proudmoore, who died quite a few years ago while defending the world against the First Horde. The corpse is resurrected by Sylvanas, with the plan of warping his mind, twisting him into a puppet, and then send him back home to deal damage from within. A plan that crosses the line for Bane Bloodhoof. He finally decides that enough is enough, and under the cover of darkness, he liberates Derek to bring him back to his sister.
Why?
The Horde has a sickness in it. We wage war while the Earth Mother dies. We have forgotten what truly matters, and my heart can bear it no longer.
Sylvanas will kill you for this. And she may not stop with you.
No life is worth living if we cannot be true to our nature.
Death was not the price that Bane would pay for his betrayal. Not when he could be used for bait. Jaina, Matthias Shaw, Thrall, and even Saurfang, they moved out to rescue the leader of the Tarn within Orgrimmar. Saurfang was not slain during the siege of Lordaeron. Anduin had decided to imprison him until it became clear that in order to stop the Banshee Queen, they were going to have to work together. In secret, Saurfang has moved about, avoiding loyalists and assassins alike.
He was the one that convinced Fro to come back from Outlands and stand with the Horde once more.
This feels wrong. Sylvanas must have known we were coming.
Indeed she did, traitor. You and Lady Proudmoore.
Despite this being an obvious trap, we are still able to fight our way out of there. Plan upon plan, and they just keep on failing. The events here and the events in Nashatar, it has showed the Alliance and the Horde that, as usual, working together, it brings them far greater profits than standing alone. They gather their forces and make ready for another siege of Orgrimmar. Meanwhile, inside the gates, the Loyalists, they've been working hard to prepare themselves. Citizens are rallied to take up arms, while any propaganda spreading all manners of lies, it's removed from the streets. Any citizen that has a problem with that, they're put to the sword, while the siege engines waiting outside, they're sabotaged with bombs. Gallywix, he does some important paperwork, by burning as much evidence as he can, yet all of this, it wouldn't matter, as the second siege of Orgrimmar, it would not be a massive raid. Instead, it would be a one-on-one duel.
Sylvanas Windrunner! I challenge Mak'gora!
A traitor leading traitors. Why should I accept your challenge?
You want to make me suffer.
Brother, you cannot win.
My old friend. You and I.
We don't get to hide.
I set you on this path.
And we knew where it could lead. Walk with me. The rest of the way. Let it be finished.
The High Overlord falls. I trusted you. And so did they. Death comes, old soldier. And all their hope dies with you.
You cannot kill hope. You tried at Teldrassil. You failed. Hope remains. You set us to kill each other at Lordaeron. You failed. Here we stand. You just keep failing. The Horde will endure. The Horde is strong.
The Horde is nothing! You are all nothing!
For Azeroth!
If you could could see yourselves as I see you. Toy soldiers in tin plate. Beasts who howl for honor, standing as one. Savor it. Nothing lasts.
A duel our Saurfang knew he could not win, but one in which he still claimed victory by outing Sylvanas to the rest of the hordes. His death, it has prevented more bloodshed, while the Banshee Queen, she abandons all of them. The Horde, her loyalists, the Forsaken, abandons them to pursue her true plans.
As do I, Dark Lady. But when the time comes, there can be no hesitation.
There won't be. Safe journey, Nathanos.
Safe journey, my love.
Serve the Horde. Champion. I wasn't certain you made it out of Orgrimmar. If the traitors knew of your service to me, they'd have put you in irons. Or worse. Saurfang's ill-considered challenge may have ended the war prematurely, but it doesn't matter now. Countless souls have been fed to the hungering darkness. Though I cared nothing for the living, I did pity the Forsaken, for the great injustice that made them what they are. I understand the cruelty of fate better than anyone. But despite all I taught them, they stubbornly clung to hope, to life. They will learn the truth, along with all the rest. My bargain with Azshara will yet bear fruit. The armies of Azeroth will fight her master, and he will line their streets with corpses. In the end, he too will serve death. Enough reflection. There are preparations to be made. Nothing lasts. When next you see me, you will understand.
The war chief has left the Horde behind, which leaves some people with quite the hate boner. People like Gen Greymane and Troran the Whisperwind. They won't rest until they've claimed their heads, claimed vengeance for all the death and destruction that she has caused. No matter the fragile peace that the Allies and Horde try to come up with again. No matter the changes in leadership within the Horde, now ruled by a council rather than a war chief. They won't rest until the Dark Lady has paid. That's for those that hated her, but the ones who loved her, the Forsaken and Loyalists that stayed at her side through it all, they're hurting, truly feeling forsaken now. Some placed in chains, while others, they stick to the shadows, hoping that this is all part of some major plan. I have my doubts that being a loyalist to Sylvanas will actually have major lore implications in the next expansion, but I have been surprised before. With the Dark Lady gone, it's Lillian Voss that has stepped up to lead the Forsaken. At her side, we find Kadia Menethil. At the moment, she's focused her attention on offering guidance and comfort to the recently resurrected Night Elves, but the possibility is still there that she is going to be the one to fulfill the role of new Queen of the Forsaken. Only time's going to tell if that is going to happen. To stay with Sylvanas, she has abandoned the Horde, the factions and her people to pursue new plans. Or perhaps a more accurate description, that would be to pursue her true plans. It turns out that for all these years, as we've been following her storyline, more's been happening behind the curtains than what we were actually told. Let's roll back the clock to that critical, defining moment for the story of Sylvanas. At the top of Icecrown, where she finished her mission of claiming vengeance upon Arthas and threw herself on the Serenite down below, that's the moment in which she ended up in the Maw and she got in touch with the jailer. A story she shares with captured Anduin Wrynn within the novel Sylvanas. This book, this storyline, it does its best to explain her motivation for allying with the one that was responsible for the creation of the Lich King to begin with, the one who was responsible for Arthas and Frostmourne, and basically her entire motivation until the end of Wrath of the Lich King. This critical moment that was never fully explained within the game. So we're gonna talk about it. Let me read it out. The greatest deception that the makers ever perpetrated was to fool us into believing that we have a choice in any facet of our existence. You have fought so hard for freedom, Sylvanas Windrunner, for control. It is a battle that I have fought as well, and one that I've witnessed play out across the eons, more times than are numbers to count, and all those battles, courageous and foolhardy alike, were for naught. I was the arbiter. Do you know what I saw? Fragile beings left to the fickle whims of fate, their worlds, their kin, whether they were wise or simple, hale or sickly. These things were forced upon them from the moment they drew their first breath until they exhaled their last. The choice was never theirs. And when their lives ended, it was my duty to decide their soul's fate for all eternity. Anger flared as she thought of her own life, the decisions made for her. No, I refuse to believe this nonsense. Most deny it. A few eventually accept it. But no one can escape it, because escape has never been a part of the Maker's grand design. No one escaped the Maw, or any of the infinite afterlives forged to bind mortal souls, from its conception to execution, and throughout all that has been and is, the design is gravely, cruelly, and worst of all, indifferently flawed. When Arthur struck her down, Sylvanas had felt, just for a moment, the peace that had awaited her. Had they been part of this flawed design? How could her situations, her death at the hand of Arthas, from the blade of Frostmourne, how could that have been inevitable? Her mind, still reeling from the cacophony she'd endured earlier, could not wrap itself around such a thing. Not yet. And so she focused on something else. "Why are you here?" she asked him. She did not care, but as long as he was speaking to her, the torment had ceased, and she did care about that, deeply. "What was your crime?" "I dared to defy the will of the Makers. I sought to break their flawed design, to replace it with a better one. And for this, my own kin condemned me to this unjust fate, a fate I must share with the damned, broken souls I oversee." Again, Sylvanas thought of all that she had endured in life and in death. Resentment, drowned out by blind agony, crept in again. "In many ways, your story echoes my own," the jailer continued. "We were both betrayed and broken. I too was torn asunder. I understand well what it is like to feel achingly, eternally incomplete." He lifted his grey hairless head. His eyes glowed the same hue as the blur of runes that led from either side of his nose down his face, one in the center of his forehead. Her gaze drifted down to the gaping chasm in the center of his chest. Something in Sylvanas was terrified by that sight, a fear deep and primal. Had she hands of flesh, they would have clutched at her own lifeless heart. How often had it seemed to her that her chest was simply devoid of one? Sylvanas thought of her death, of how Arthas' hatred and petulance had ripped bliss away from her when it was almost hers, how the world she gazed upon with unliving eyes seemed a shadow of the one that haunted her memories. "They ripped out your heart," she murmured. "Far more than that," the jailer said. "I sought to change the fate of all, and for that I was torn in two. They took the essence of my power and fashioned a new arbiter, one without a will to defy the grand design. Then my own brother carved into my flesh the runes that were meant to bind me for eternity." Her eyes focused on the glowing symbols. For the first time, the hazy shapes hardened into crystal clarity, and in that instant, she summoned forth the Banshee's will to shatter the darkness with her rage. "Frostmourne, you bear the mark of the blade that ended me." The jailer's voice remained cold, dispassionate. "A blade designed by the vengeful mind of my brother. The same brother who used his words of domination to bind me." Her mind raced. Could what he said be true? Could all the destruction and torment inflicted upon her world by Arthas Menethil be architected by the same cruel beings that created this jailer? Her soul blazed like fire at the thought of it. "You see it now, do you not?" His words were thick with bitterness. "We are the same, Sylvanas Windrunner. We fought for something greater than ourselves, and we were made to suffer for it. Each of us twisted into an effigy of our own damnation." An effigy of my own damnation. Oh, how this piece of it gripped her. Arthas had done this to her, snatched her away, siphoned her soul into the coldest of blades, forced her to use her voice, raised in the darkest way possible, to kill the innocents. And for that, she was doomed. Even as she had the thought, she felt a faint stirring, a slight brush at the back of her mind. He was here, somewhere in the maw. Of course he was. Arthas Menethil, the brightest of lights seduced to become in the darkest of shadows. But it was not the grinning, sadistic master. It was a little boy, lost and alone and confused. I knew you would sense him, the jailer said. How could I not? She replied. His voice was inside my head long enough. Does it please you to know that he is trapped here, in the inescapable darkness? Sylvanas thought of all the long hours when she had rapaciously plotted Arthas' demise. She was a hunter and knew how to remove skin and organs from the fallen prey. She wanted him to suffer, and he was. And yet, not even this gives me joy, she said quietly. Nothing will give you joy, he said. This is the maw. The word struck her almost physically. He was right. There would be only suffering in such a place. A thought struck her. Jailer, she said, why did you pluck me from my torment? If I was fated, did I endure it? Because nothing escapes the maw until it does. The impact of his statement settled on her. So heavy and full of portent, Sylvanas could almost feel it. You know a way to escape. It took countless eons for me to summon the strength to break my chains. Countless more for me to turn the runes used to bind me into a weapon I could wield. And though I could not leave the maw, I found a means to extend my will beyond the prison, sought allies who shared my vision for what must be done. What do you mean? It needs to end. Life, death, all of it. I know how to break it, and the place I must go to rebuild it. And the success of your plan, constructed and honed over untold millennia, depends on the aid of allies like me? She scoffed. I doubt that very much. You are wise to be skeptical, the jailer replied, but a thing is no less true simply because you do not believe it. As arbiter, I judged countless mortal souls from worlds beyond your imagining, and in all that time, none surpassed the potential of those that came from your world of Azeroth. Your wills are fierce, and yours is the fiercest I've yet encountered. Flattery, she retorted, growing inexplicably angry with the giant being. You think I would be swayed by that? His voice took a new tone, not pleading or wheedling. This one would never beg, she could tell, but sincere and surprised. You fail to see the greatness you are capable of. You have been underestimated, unappreciated, but you failed no one. Lirav, she thought, but did not say. You saved so many, some who did not even want your help, who did not deserve your help, but you saved their lives regardless. She thought of her keening at the gates of Quel'thelas, the sight of so many simply dropping down into death. If only the jailer were right. The false arbiter of the Shadowlands saw that, and still sent you here. It is not Arthas you need to be free of. It is your own mortality. Our path will have no place for the compassion, the regrets, the guilt of the living. It will have no place for their morality, because it, just like the machine of death, is at its heart flawed. And that flaw is believing that anything is fair. She was silent. So much was unjust. That was a painful truth, but predestination on such a scale? I believe you spin a fantasy of lies to tell me what you think I most wish to hear. For all I know, Arthas and his blade were forged by your hands. I do not expect blind trust, and to that end I offer 2 gifts. The first is knowledge, and the second, choice. Why? Her tone was defiant, brazen. Why offer gifts where you could just as easily compel me to carry out your will? I do not desire a slave, Sylvanas Windrunner. I need an ally. Someone whose mind is keen enough to understand my goal, and who is strong enough to see it through, no matter the cost, because nothing worth having comes without a price. I want you to choose to aid me willingly, with full knowledge of what I have done for your own sake, and for those of everything that has or will live and die. I thought you said all our choices were made for us, Sylvanas replied. In life and in death, he agreed. But now, Sylvanas, in this moment, in this place with me, you are neither. This is the first choice that is truly your own. Had she a form, it would have trembled. It was a ludicrous thought, this idea of lack of free will, and yet, as she fought back, she wondered. You have been studying me indeed, to tempt me with the one thing you know I value the most, Sylvanas replied. Give me this knowledge you promised then, and I will choose. The jailer gazed at her unblinkingly for a long moment, then spoke. The Mournblade my brother designed was an object of immense power. Frostmourne was a harvester of souls, imbued with an insatiable hunger, a hunger I sought to use for my own ends. What? How? Though I did not design the blade, the runes forged into its metal could be made to answer to my will. His words continued to hammer at her, striking her psyche with agonizing blows. I used secret allies to guide the sword and the helm it was forged with along a path of my choosing. First, into inept hands of the Burning Legion, convincing the demons that it was a weapon they could wield. The instrument of domination were to anchor the power of death to your world of Azeroth, but the blade and helm found their way to Ner'zhul, a weak-willed orc whose mind was as broken as the world he shattered. He sought to bind himself to the body of his pupil, Arthas Menethil, yet it was the young prince who won that battle. So I sought to use this new Lich King to herald my coming, but his selfish desire for conquest made him defiant. You, she spat, her face contorted in a snarl of pure rage. You, not the Lich King, not Arthas. You! Do you know what you did to me? Arthas used Frostmourne to end your mortal life, but not by my command. He was too weak to truly master the Mournblade's potential. In the end, he used the tools of domination to pursue his own selfish desire for power. He betrayed everything. His vows, his family, his friends, even himself, and that is why you can sense him here. Powerless, frightened, weak. But something survived the ashes of his failure. You did. Through the blade, I grew to know and understand you. You were strong when you lived, Sylvanas. You are even stronger now. And you have the intelligence to understand, and the vision to see what can be done. I will listen to nothing you have to say, Sylvanas snarled. Your words stink of lies. I am dead. I am this because of you. Why would I ever aid you? Arthas cut you down. I would have lifted you up. By my will, the torment that assailed you are held at bay. If my words are lies, then only more torment awaits you, he said. If you distrust my words, then let your own perception reveal the truth of them. The Shadowlands are infinite. Though they would seem to be as varied as the souls who inhabit them, they all suffer under the yoke of the Maker's oppression. My Valkyr can show that everything I am telling you is true. They appeared as the jailer spoke of them, hovering great wings beating steadily. The proud faces, beautiful, strong, and resolute. Before you refuse me, remember what I am offering you. We will remake everything. Life, death. You will be at my side at each step. Together, we will show every soul that both their lives and the eternity that awaits them are prisons. And we will bring them true freedom.
And I will set us all free.
Basically, all the motivations that we speculate about are thrown at her to turn her into an ally. From the threats of the Torment of the Maw to flattery, sincerity, and a dash of truth. The Valkyrie then take her on a tour through the Shadowlands, where she saw how the Domain of Death operated, how the souls are judged by the Arbiter and sent to the individual domains. There were some happy moments, but too skewed by the knowledge of the Arbiter's lack of care for them to truly be satisfying. She visited Revendreth and saw Vol'jin. Considering the rivers of blood she witnessed him create, she didn't think it was very fair for her to end up in the maw while he got a chance to pay for his sins.
That doesn't seem fair.
That is still a question, by the way. Was Sylvanas actually judged, or did the jailer drag her into the maw by using a piece of her soul that he possesses? And if he was able to drag her into the maw, then why didn't he need Uther and the Valkyrie to throw Arthas into the maw? Still questions left to be answered. Then she visits a domain that's actually a paradise for the creatures that get to spend their afterlife there. Except the Arbiter did not consider the bonds created in life. They didn't even get to spend eternity with the ones that they had loved. Which, again,
that doesn't seem fair.
Her mind shot to her parents, to her sisters, to her brother Lirov, and slowly but surely, she starts to open up to the idea that this unjust system had to be destroyed. A system that judges you for actions taken during a life that is predetermined, to then separate you from the things that matter to you the most, all of it without choice or agency. But with the jailer, they could make justice happen. Then she could search for her brother with the certainty that all would be well. She didn't make her choice right there and then though, because the concept of a predetermined life, it's not been fully proven. She isn't convinced entirely. Something that the jailer knew how to fix. I have seen what you said I would see. Misery and injustice, imbalance and illogic at this. The one place where mortals have so long believed the justice that escapes them during their lives might be corrected. Now you understand, he said. I do, but I'm cautious, careful. I do not give my trust easily, and I still do not trust you, she said. Trust between allies is earned, the jailer agreed, but if your own eyes do not convince you, I'm not certain what will, while I know that in the end you will grant it to me, because you will not be able to deny the truth of what you bore witness to. There is a risk if you delay. Time passes differently in the Shadowlands than in the mortal worlds. It can be unpredictable. You may return to your body and find that a mere moment has passed, or you may find only a skeleton. I say again, I want a partner. One who is able to see and understand the flaws in the design and who burns, like I do, for justice. One who has the courage to stay the course at any cost, because she is not deceived by illusions and flattery. That certainly had not been Arthas. He craved power and enjoyed using it in petty ways on those who could not fight back. If she did join with the jailer, she would not make the mistake her tormentor had. Even so, if you truly know anything about me, she said softly, do you know that I will never serve? The maw is filled with countless souls that I can force to serve me, Sylvanas, the jailer said. He sounded almost tired, as if he was utterly disconnected from the very idea of servitude. They are worth next to nothing. I need someone who will ally with me, who will set her own shoulder to the stone to help me move it, who can travel where I cannot, do what I cannot, and trust, he added, must be on all sides. I, too, have been betrayed before, by my own kin and many others I trusted. You are not like them, Sylvanas. You are like me. There will be a time for king thoughts, for compassion, the jailer assured her. Once the machine is remade, but until then, you must dedicate yourself to breaking the chains you brought with you. Remnants of your life that failed you then, and will fail you again if you allow them. The one thing I can promise is that you will find yourself time and again at a crossroads, where what is right, what we must do in order to achieve our goal, is in lethal conflict with what seems good. Only a hard heart will endure when asked to do things that seem atrocities. Only a cold heart will continue step after step when the world screams with one voice to stop. Only an uncaring heart will turn away from the trap baited with hope, for hope is the worst illusion of them all. Sometimes there are no good choices, and yet one must still choose. The end is worth the means, Sylvanas, because the end is truly the end of every moment of suffering and loss and torment forever. The only thing that was real was the pain caused by existing in a world where hope was nothing but a dream the helpless made up for themselves. I lost hope long ago, Sylvanas said quietly. I have laid aside kindness and love, and I am prepared to learn how to let go of pain and rage. Then go, the jailer said. When you have made your choice, send a Valkyr to me, and if it is yes, watch for a child of the blood. With your new insight, you will see injustice everywhere, and fairness not at all. Watch for these 5 signs, and know my words are true. A fiery darkness will return. You must step out of the shadows and lead. A blade will pierce the heart of the world, and you shall hold the blood from that wound and sense its power. And finally, you shall topple a king and shatter the sky itself. The jailer told her that life is predetermined, and then goes on to predict very specific moments to happen, and those moments did come to pass. Some of these you might write off as jailer manipulation or just common knowledge, because the Legion's return was inevitable, but something like a blade will pierce the heart of the world is incredibly specific. It means that he was able to predict that we would stop Sargeras, just in time for him to still stab the world but not destroy her. That is some incredible foresight right there, and when his words did become reality, when the darkness did return and she had to step out of the shadows and lead, she not only accepted the position of war chief, but she also became the jailer's ally.
Many will not understand, but you must step out of the shadows and lead.
The imperfect engine of death would be remade. And so, Legion played out, with Sargeras leaving his gift behind. Battle for Azeroth, the war between the Alliance and the Horde, feeding souls into the Maw and towards the Jailer. The Horde started their campaign with invading Night Elven lands. Now, they don't explain why Sylvanas didn't take the kill, when all she wanted was in her grasp. There's no extra reason given for not killing Malfurion, but they do add a bit as to what was going through her mind as she decided to burn Teldrassil. Arthas' voice floated back to her, still sharp and cruel as the sword with which he took her life. Kill the innocents first. For the first time, Sylvanas did not balk at the recollection. It did not matter where a useful thing came from, only that it was useful. Arthas had been right, but he had also failed. He was a weak vessel in the end, but Sylvanas and Zovaal would succeed where he and the Lich King had not. And so, certain in her knowledge that the suffering was finite, and the joy that awaited them was infinite, Sylvanas Windrunner ordered the world tree set aflame, and countless numbers of souls surged forward to the Maw, the jailer, and true freedom. The screams would fade, the fires die, but the goal was closer than ever. In the end, it will have been worth it, she whispered, for her ears alone, then turned to face the anguished confusion and fury of Varrock Saurfang, who did not and would not understand. In the end, as she had told Vol'jin, death would claim them all, and it would be she and Zovaal who would remake them. Now, I still wonder how much of an impact the souls of the Night Elves had compared to the entirety of the Warcraft universe, by this time draining down into the Maw. A reason could be our grand potential as children of Azeroth, our huge stores of anima. But still, one world tree versus an entire universe. The genocide of the Night Elves, which would empower Zovaal further, but also paint a target on the war chief's back. Eventually, the world rose up and got ready for Siege of Orgrimmar 2.0. Which did not exactly happen. Navanos spoke with his beloved about how she was his world, and that he did not care for life or afterlife. All he needed was right here. This little world was theirs. They could walk away, disappear, be forgotten, and be together. Despite pretending otherwise, their feelings were not entirely gone. But before this could go anywhere, Saurfang ushered his challenge.
Sylvanas Windrunner! I challenge! Mak'gora!
Sylvanas felt again the burst of fury, frustration and resentment that she had felt outside the gates of Orgrimmar. From almost every moment of her existence, she'd been trying to help, to save. Her sister Illyria during her trial, her brother Lyra from staying away of the path of the blade and getting killed by the Horde anyways, the Kaldorei, the Forsaken, and now she was trying to save every last ignorant, pathetic creature that walked, swam, flew or crawled on any world that ever existed. They would have called her mad, accused her of lying, at best, accused her of gullibility. But they had not seen what Sylvanas had, or knew what she knew. The Horde, Sourfang, had shouted at her again and again, the Hordes, as if it was anything of consequence, as if shouting wishes about something made them true. It was nothing at all, and still, seething from the hot pain of Charlemagne's bite, she told him so.
The Horde is nothing!
And yet, Sylvanas fought now, as snow swirled around her. Even so, I will still save us all, so that you may, at last, become something. There is no cost too high when eternity is at stake, and once we are done, you will understand, and you will be grateful. The book did a lot to try and make us understand why Sylvanas would ally with a walking Frostmourne. Some heavy lifting, which the game unfortunately did not tell, not to mention that the book was released near the end of the expansion rather than at the start. At least now we do know, which takes us into the expansion of the Shadowlands, the story that played out during the expansion. Time to move on, time to move forward and head on into the Shadowlands. Nathanos had failed in his mission of taking care of Bonsumdi, which didn't exactly please his Dark Lady. This was a blow, but one she felt sure that it could overcome. Sylvanas flicked her fingers, as if ridding herself of a speck of muck, while she embraced the darkness. Nathanos returned to the Marisstead, with her expectations of him finding a way to prevent the Loas meddling. This would in fact be the last time that they saw each other, as the world went on the hunt for the Dark Lady. The pressure was on to bring her to justice, pushing some to the brink, like her sister Illyria with her husband Tyrellian. He chained down innocents with the light, while she used the void to invade their minds and find some answers, but none hunted with as much passionate hatred as Tyrande Whisperwinds. The Banshee Queen had burned down Teldrassil, the genocide of the Night Elves, doomed so many spirits to the torment of the Maw. Infused with the powers of the Night Warrior, Elun's dark gift, Tyrande finds the champion of the Banshee Queen and has only one question.
Where is she?
With him, of course. In the darkest place. Along with every soul burned to ash in your precious tree.
Where is she?
Go on. Kill me. You'll send me right to my lady. Beyond the veil, she's shattered. Oh, Tyrande. High Priestess, Night Warrior, completely powerless to stop the coming.
She awaits within the Shadowlands, and not just the Banshee Queen, but so do Jaina, Frau, Bane and Anduin, who've been taken by a Valkyr. They also try to take Tyrande, but the Night Warrior is no easy prey to capture. They've been selected by Sylvanas in order of the jailer, as he's in need of a great but humble soul, one who served truly, selflessly from the heart, who put duty to others before anything else. He had a special task in mind for this soul, and to find out who was worthy, they enjoyed the torment of the Maw. Heroes of Azeroth were eventually called to come to the top of Icecrown and travel through the Veil into Hell itself to find our stolen heroes. Despite protests, Tyrande went in as well, as nothing would stop her from completing her hunt.
Won't succeed.
Such a narrow vision. You disappoint me. No matter. We will find what we seek. In another.
Anduin! How badly are you hurt?
I will live.
Fighting a way through the jailer's forces, we actually did manage to find our stolen heroes, but getting them out of the Maw, the domain from which nothing is supposed to escape, it proved rather difficult.
The light is with me. Even here. champion. Go! You have failed.
No. I have precisely what I need.
Anduin apparently shows the jailer that he's the right candidate, the one that he's been looking for. And while we came here for a rescue mission, we barely managed to escape ourselves. We can't get them out quite yet, so we focused our efforts on the Shadowlands. All of it was in trouble, due to the actions of the jailer, and by extension Sylvanas herself. In Oribos, we learned about the Arbiter shutting down, souls directly dropping into the Maw. We travelled through the different zones of Bastion, Maldraxxus, Ardenweald and Revendrev. We learned more about how the Shadowlands operates, the problems that they were facing, met the leaders, made new allies, took care of threats, until at last we returned to Hell as Maw-walkers, taking on the jailer's forces and finding a way to his base of operations, the Tower of Torghast.
Not again. No! I will not yield! My mind is my own! Do you hear me?
Whoever you are, whatever you want, I will fight you. You will not break me.
We have managed to save Bane, Jaina and Thrall, but young Anduin was still nowhere to be found.
All that matters is we now possess the necessary instrument. We must begin its preparation.
Leave him to me. You've seen what he is capable of when he believes in the cause. A measure of patience may yield superior results.
Very well. We have our weapon. Now, we shall hone it.
There was more to it for Sylvanas than just turning Anduin into a more powerful and capable ally. To her, as much as she liked to deny it, it was personal. It's during his imprisonment here that the story we talked about last time, the story within the Sylvanas novel, is explained. It's the Dark Lady telling Anduin her life story, trying to convince him of the clear truth that the jailer had told her, for if she could make Anduin see it their way, have him willingly join their side, that in turn would make her choices right as well. And on top of that, she saw in Anduin her little brother Lyrav. Down to the nicknames that she used. Lyrav was a little lord's son. Anduin she called Little Lion. But the boy king would not serve.
Look around you! At what and who you've joined.
What makes you believe you're not just a weapon to achieve his ends?
You have a choice to consider. Join us willingly, or be made to serve.
I thought you believed in free will, Sylvanas.
We've never had free will, Little Lion. But that is about to change.
Let me go, he told her. We can leave this place, and I will help you. Your goal is worthy, but not the way the jailer intends to achieve it. Never like that. Something inside her shattered. You are a fool, Anduin Wrynn, and you've made one of me as well. Have you been angling to get my sympathy this entire time? To trick me into releasing you? To make me think that I've lost my perspective? That I would turn on the jailer just because your face resembles someone I once loved? She shook her head angrily. I am done, she said. I am done with all of this. I leave you to your fate, Anduin. Fury made her tremble, and fury gave her speed as she stalked out. He called after her, but she did not halt, did not look back. If she did, she was afraid that everything she was would come apart.
There she is again. You know, these endless lectures of yours
have failed to convince you. Regardless, the conversation is over. One way or another, we will have you. So I will offer this one last time. Join our cause, or be made to serve.
What kind of choice is that? Why even give me? It's the choice you never had. Despite all your grand designs, there's still some shred of your mortality haunting you. As if the Banshee Queen hasn't entirely eclipsed the Ranger General.
Don't.
Now I understand why you brought me here. Why you've tried so hard to persuade me. Because if you can get me to let go of hope, you finally can too.
Enough! Submit! You are only making this harder on yourself.
Not harder on me. Right now, you hold all the power. How will you use it?
I've not come this far to falter now.
Then why do you hesitate? Make your choice, Sylvanas Windrunner.
And so Sylvanas made her choice, stayed the course, and used the recently forged Kingsmorn, Shelamain, turned into a Mornblade, infused what remained of Arce's soul, and she forced the same fate upon Anduin as Arthas had done to her. Sylvanas stole his free will, and the jailer had his dominated weapon. The reason why he was so keen on a soul like this one, it was so that they could infiltrate the domain of Bastion. Despite them knowing that Anduin had been captured in the Maw, and despite we ourselves having to prove our worth to the Archon in order to get an audience, Anduin is accepted based on reputation alone, and they welcome him in, giving him, or more accurately put, giving the jailer the opportunity to strike the leader of Bastion and steal her sigil. He will need all 5 to gain access to Zereth Mortis, to get into the Sepulchre and fulfill his ultimate plan of rewriting the universe. We can see here that Anduin is not entirely gone. The act of stabbing the Archon is so against his own nature that just for a moment he regains control, experiences the full horror that's going on, before the jailer tightens his leash again.
The vessel performed its part flawlessly. 3 keys remain. Then they will see. Death was never meant to be chained.
A flicker of doubt crosses Sylvanas' face as she looks at what she's done. Someone who in her mind and heart reminded her so much of her beloved brother, turned into what Arthas made of her. She had become the thing that she had fought against. But all for the greater good, right? That's what the jailer had told her after all. But he also told her how much he valued her as an ally. And seeing how he treats his other allies...
Sire Denathrius has been taken prisoner. What is our plan to recover him?
Every soul has its purpose. Denathrius has fulfilled his.
Does not exactly inspire confidence. This was when they were still forging Kingsmorn and made ready to force Anduin into servitude. Another blow in her conviction that would come as their quest for the sigils would lead them into Ardenweald, where Tyrande Whisperwind, after who knows how long of soloing the Shadowlands, finally finishes her hunt.
Tyrande, I understand you've been looking for me. Come then. Show me Elune's wrath.
Elune gave me her strength. The wrath is mine alone!
Night Warrior. I expected more.
I will take your head, Banshee! Just like I took his! Thought you didn't know. Your master is keeping secrets from you!
They broke the through! Pull back! Pull back!
A trick. No! Elune
The night's power wanes. Once again, she denies you victory.
Mother Moon, do not forsake me. End this!
Bask in the dying embers of your goddess's bargain, Tyrande. Nothing lasts.
Sylvanas taunts Tyrande like Nathanos had done, but the champion of the Banshee Queen was wrong. Death did not send him directly to his beloveds. Perhaps the Valkyr had been so busy that they haven't gotten around to picking up his soul yet. We as players helped gather the soul of Ben, after all, who died during the Shadowlands pre-event, so it's not like they all instantly fly you into the Shadowlands. More likely though, his soul did arrive in the Maw, and the jailer not only kept his death a secret, he also kept his soul away. For what reason or purpose, we may never know for sure, as even to this day, Nathanos is still missing, and we never saw her confront the jailer about learning about this, learning about Nathanos. Now I would imagine that he kept the soul in reserve, in case that she needed some extra motivation, or perhaps he wanted to make sure that Nathanos would not whisper in her ear, would not push her away from this path. Who knows what Zovaal was thinking? The end result is all the same. His loyal ally now knows that he's been keeping secrets from her. She survives this encounter, as Tyrande's Night Warrior powers run out at the most unfortunate of times. Survives to stay at Zovaal's side, as they make ready to claim the final sigil and get everything that they've been working for.
The battle is almost upon us. I will deal with the invading forces atop Torghast. When we reach Oribos, you will defend Zovaal while he completes the ritual.
You mean he will compel me to defend him? Each time he dominates my will, I feel myself slipping further away. Is this what you felt when Arthas raised you, Sylvanas? Hollow, empty, everything you once were, consumed by darkness.
Yes, young lion. But in the end, the sacrifices we've made will have been worth it. Once the cycle of life and death has been broken and remade, we will...
By that time, I'll have been lost. And so will you. I only hope my friends will remember me as I was, not what you made me to be.
Bolvar leads the heroes of Azeroth through the Sanctum of Domination, the jailer's home base, in which he's expanding his reach all the way to Oribos, where the Arbiter and the final sigil awaits. The road there had us face off against some of his most powerful forces, like the 9 Valkyr, the warrior maidens that had entered the bargain with Sylvanas, allowed her to resurrect more Forsaken, and stayed out of hell by taking her place instead.
Valkyr, you are bound to me. Strike down my foes.
As you command, Dark Lady.
The Dungeon Journal claims that the Dark Pact Sylvanas struck with the Valkyr forged her bond with the jailer, from which, at first read, it would give the impression that it was her acceptance of the Valkyr that got her out of hell, the origin story of Edge of Night, that was the thing that bound her to the jailer. With the Sylvanas novel, we now know that she made the choice willingly. She willingly sided with him as she became the war chief. But still, the Valkyr definitely played a part in forging her bond, as they were the ones who showed her around the Shadowlands. Speaking of bargains, the one mentioned between Sylvanas and Helya during Legion, that was also orchestrated by the jailer. Helya was his ally after all, and told Sylvanas to pick up the artifact from her, to pick up the soul cage. Helya was reluctant to part with it, but I pointed out that it would benefit her as much as it would benefit him. I was instructed to use it to command the leader of the Valkyr to deliver the mighty souls she commands to Helya, who in turn would turn them into our purpose. So Helya had given her the cage so that Sylvanas could deliver her the power of the Valkyr, which Helya could turn into more forces for the jailer. That was the deal, with Gen Greymane not to put a stop to it. You stole my son's future. Now I'm stealing yours, he had told her. But if anyone's future had been stolen, it had been that of Gen himself. Who knew where the Arbiter had sent his son Liam? Who knew where it would send Gen, or indeed any of his family? The possibilities were, quite literally, limitless. But the chance of them all being together, according to the Valkyr, there was no chance at all. Fool, she whispered. Old sad fool.
We will reshape it all.
Azeroth's champions, you've arrived at last. Despite witnessing the broken cycle of life and death with your own eyes, still, you would stop us from remaking this flawed system. What a pity.
There are no more Valkyr to protect you, Sylvanas. You will die here for the last time.
The Archer does not mourn the loss of their arrows, High Lord. A shame you won't survive to witness our victory. But if it's an ending you seek, then come and meet it.
The arrow line is a repeat of our mindset towards the Forsaken, as we read it within Edge of Night. They turned from arrows in her quiver to a bulwark against the infinite. Now the warrior maidens, who had forged the pact with her, took her place in hell, allowed her to fight for eternity salvation. Get the same description.
Your efforts are futile. Oribos is within my grasp.
No! We will stop you! Jaina, we need a portal. The jailer must not take the Eternal City!
Sylvanas has become quite powerful through her jailer covenant, capable of putting up a fight against several heroes of Azeroth and her own might included. The ability to fly is quite overpowered here, as we need to be more careful with our footing. Jaina and Thrall build bridges across the chains, while we chase down the Banshee Queen, and we try to stop the jailer from reaching Oribos.
We're done with your games, so
you will pay! All of you will pay!
You don't have to do this! Surrender!
Suffer my wrath!
For Sourfang! For the Horde!
This time you'll lose, Sylvanas.
All hope is lost.
Sylvanas! Give Anduin to me!
Hear the sound of suffering!
Hold them back a little longer. The portal's nearly open. It's done. Hurry!
No! The jailer is going to destroy the Arbiter!
Quickly, champions! Stop Sylvanas!
Death bends to my will!
Anduin is keeping our allies busy in the middle, so now we face the Banshee Queen all by ourselves. The clock is running out though, and despite our best efforts, the jailer succeeds in taking back what was stolen from him.
He's done it. The Arbiter falls.
We already have what we need!
Too long I endured the Maker's flawed design. I will forge a new reality, where all shall serve.
will never serve.
Still chained by mortality. You did help restore something stolen from me. Allow me to rename you in kind. I leave you to their mercy. Come, be the first to witness reality's end.
Cannot let him reach me.
The way to Zerah Mortis, the sepulchre, and the power to rewrite the universe is open to Sylval. While Sylvanas has her soul restored. They've added the ability to Mournblades that, when wielded with rage, it has a chance to shatter a soul into fragments. Now the question, did the jailer use her soul piece to drag her into the maw to begin with? That's still up in the air. If he was able to do this with her, what does this say about the Kyrian who ferry souls and the judgment of the Arbiter? And if he was able to drag her into the maw, why not Arthas? Picking up Frostmourne also took a piece of his soul away. Why was Uther required to throw Arthas in there? But on the other hand, if he didn't drag her in there, if he didn't manipulate these events, which I personally do think they are going with the story, as in, we are going to replace this unfair judgment system of the Shadowlands with a much better one. But if she was judged by the Arbiter and then found worthy to go to the Maw, then I do wonder why she was sent to the Maw, whereas others, like a Lady Vush or a Quel'thelas or a Garrosh, why they did not, why they got to spend their time in Revendreth.
That doesn't seem fair.
Questions left behind in the Shadowlands. We follow the Primus' guidance in Reforge the Covenants, as well as their sigils. This allowed us to open up the way to Zerah Mortis herself and try to stop the jailer. Meanwhile, the Banshee Queen is kept at Oribos, stuck in a nightmare of her own making. Compliments of the jailer as he restored her soul. Someone is gonna have to go down there to get her out. Who better than Uther the Lightbringer, who had to deal with his own shattered soul?
Sylvanas' soul has been fractured from the moment of her death until now.
Burn it! This was their home. And you slaughtered all of them! How could you take all those innocent lives? This was beyond life and death. There was no other path to true freedom. How can you not see that? I see what you are. Murderer! Monster! Butcher! Why can I not escape this torment?
The jailer has severed their bond and condemned her to endlessly relive her atrocities. So long as her soul remains divided, she cannot wake.
Maybe she shouldn't.
She's the only one who knows the jailer's plan and how we might save Anduin.
She's the one that turned Anduin.
Jaina is right. How can we possibly trust her?
Her wound runs so much deeper than mine. Well met, Ranger General.
What is this? Who are you?
Someone who shared your fate, felled by the blade of the very same prince.
Arthas. I died trying to stop that monster. Only to wake up haunted by one with my face.
That Banshee is you.
No. I cannot accept that.
Her path began where yours ended. And you've seen the decisions she made.
Never in 1,000 lifetimes would I betray everything I stood for. You can't possibly understand.
The jailer is deceptively cunning. When I realized I had become his pawn, it nearly destroyed me. He had no doubts it would destroy you as well. Was he right? Or will you accept her shattered legacy and tell us how to stop him?
Her crimes are unforgivable.
Yes.
And she... Burn it! I must face the consequences.
We cannot change the past, and we may never find forgiveness in the future. But inaction damns us all. Time is short, Ranger General. Make your choice. I've done all I can.
This moment is pretty out there, and it had some wonder what just happened. Did the Banshee Queen get replaced with the Ranger General? Is she alive again? Are they pretending like she's a different person for the redemption arc? A lot of reactions came out of this. My take, my explanation, that would be to see it as if part of her soul has been trapped within the time capsule. From the moment that she was struck down by Arthas in Warcraft 3, that part of her soul has been cut out, unaware of the road that she herself would take when turned into a Banshee. Her road as the Dark Lady, leader of the Forsaken, member of the Horde, already doing anything it took to claim vengeance upon Arthas. Then, when she decided to end it all by throwing herself on the top of Icecrown, she again did anything it took to fulfill the plans of the jailer, in her mind to right the wrongs of the universe and rewrite a flawed design. The person that she used to be now looks at who she's become, and she is forced to accept that step by step, slowly but surely, she has become more and more like Arthas. She could never imagine that this is who she would become, but she'll have to come to terms with it, acknowledging that her crimes are unforgivable, and Uther confirms this. We cannot change the past, and we may never find forgiveness in the future, but inaction damns the soul. Make your choice. And she does, liberating herself. But, of course, not everybody is instantly on board with the idea of Sylvanas helping us out.
Tell the others what you told me.
You all have witnessed the jailer's power firsthand. Without the means to resist his domination, we have no chance against him. Anduin may be the key, if we can save him.
You dare speak of freeing him after all you have done?
Sylvanas held the Mournblade that bound him. Her presence may help free Anduin from the jailer's grasp.
I will never trust her.
Then trust in me.
Always, Uther. Very well. We will prepare to enter the Sepulchre and save Anduin. Together.
I feel my soul slipping away.
Break his hold, Anduin! The strength lies within you!
What do you know of strength, betrayer? You lacked the strength to protect your people as you fell before Frostmourne. You are weak, Windrunner. are made to serve.
Save yourselves! End this!
Do you not understand? This one is bound to me. Fulfill your final purpose. Annihilation. The fate of all who carry my blade. My son. This blade does not belong to darkness. It was forged by valor. And also by honor. Its legacy and ours are with you, even here. Now, let it be finished.
Is this all that remains of him?
The last flicker of his scarred spirit, consumed in the forges of the jailer.
No crown, no throne, not even a soul left for judgment. I hated you, hunted you, and with each selfish act became you. That is my burden to bear. But your legacy is at an end. Be gone then, Arthas Menethil. May the last whisper of your name fade and be forgotten.
Breaking apart Charlemagne and breaking free of the jailer's control also shatters the spirit of Arthas that had been imbued into Kingsmorn. Throughout the encounter, Anduin temporarily manifested the source of his domination. Through this, the jailer was able to dominate the Boy King. And now, after witnessing who knows what horrors, after performing who knows what kinds of vile acts, Anduin Wrynn is free of what Sylvanas forced upon him. The scars of those actions will ripple on. But for now, we'll have to focus on the jailer, as he's creeping ever closer to fulfilling his goals within the Sepulchre. Just one problem though. Last time that we fought him, he used his control of domination to dominate us. If we go in again without preparing, we'd just be instantly controlled. That's where the Helmet of Domination comes in. By imbuing it with some of the most advanced pieces of the First One's power that we can find, and the experiences of those that have managed to overcome domination, we should be able to forge something which will give us the will to resist Sylval's control.
These mirrors will focus your memories to draw out the ones that we need.
This is a perilous undertaking, Kyrian. Domination magic is not easy to overcome.
We must harness what is within us. There is no other choice.
It must be done. I am willing to bear any suffering, so long as it will help.
Bolvar and Darien are able to unleash their fire and blood-bound memories. Not without pain or struggles, but they get the job done. Then there is young Anduin, around the age of 19 at this point, who just got out of who knows what, closely to the side of the jailer. We can only imagine what he has witnessed, what he was forced to do.
I pray some good can come from all of this.
What is this? It's
I cannot.
Anduin, we cannot put him through this again.
I see your struggle, young lion. Allow me to offer perspective. I don't remember the exact moment I wrested control. I do remember the rush of freedom, the clarity of purpose. When I loosed my arrow, I sought to become his judge and his executioner. I thought that if I could punish him for his crimes, I would be absolved of mine. Forgiven for the atrocities he forced me to commit against my own people. But there would be no justice that day for anyone. That is yet to come.
The one who forced domination upon him in the first place now gets to offer her insight, and Anduin thinks he understands. All of them that were touched by domination, they were able to tap into something else, whether nobility or vengeance. It gave them the strength to resist. With all that he has faced, he has to remember that he's still here, and if there are those willing to stand with Sylvanas, he has to believe they will stand with him as well.
I will try again.
Search for the light within you, Anduin.
You are strong enough.
There. I have done all I can.
You did well, Anduin.
This is not the end of your suffering, but it is a step forward.
The pieces are now ready to be reforged by the Primus, turning it into the Crown of Wills, which we use to buff ourselves, magically protect ourselves from the Jailer's control. It wasn't easy, but it was certainly worth it, as we reached the Jailer just in time to stop him from claiming the soul of our world and rewrite the entire universe. He did leave us with a warning, though, that the universe divided will not able to stand against what is to come. Worries for later. As for now, with the new Arbiter in place, it is time to place judgment upon Sylvanas' soul.
Be warned, their words will be harsh.
I expect no less.
Come, let us be on our way.
You defiled our sacred groves! Torment is all you deserve!
Your sins are beyond measure!
How many souls have you doomed?
We trusted you! You betrayed us all!
My home, my family, all burned to ashes. Is it justice they seek, or vengeance?
Anger and pain make it difficult to tell the difference.
The flow of souls into the Maw has ended. The Covenants and the Shadowlands have been restored. Only one task remains. Sylvanas Windrunner, the time for your judgment is at hand. There can be no true justice without compassion. And I can see your deeds bear the mark of the Jailer's influence. An influence we failed to contain.
The Jailer did not control me. My actions were mine alone. and I accept their consequences.
Then, you know in your heart to whom you must answer.
I submit to the judgment of Tyrande Whisperwind.
Entrusting justice to your most fervent adversary. Are there any gathered here who object to this fate? So be it.
What game do you play now, Banshee? The Sylvanas I hunted would never submit to the blade of her enemy.
Death would be a merciful end, Tyrande. And I do not expect your mercy.
Your newfound remorse might be genuine, but it can never erase all you have done. There will be no peace for you, Windrunner, until there is peace for the souls of your victims. The prisoner is in my charge now. Bring her!
The original problem of a predestined universe forged by the First Ones to then have souls judged upon their actions. It's not dealt with, while we have seen evidence confirming that, like the jailer, they too were able to predict extremely specific moments. But in an interview, it became clear that it was not their intent to portray the story in such a way. They instead wanted to give the impression that the First Ones, they were able to accommodate for eventualities, similar to how the jailer's influence was not meant to push pretty much everything in the story of Warcraft into his direction. Instead, their intent was to make it clear that the Domain of Death had influence on the Warcraft universe, like we've seen with, for example, the Titans and the Domain of Order. That said, it is safe to say that the Jailer's influence can be found upon the life of Sylvanas Windrunner, and yet she refuses to use it as an excuse. She has made her own choices, and will accept the punishment of Tyrande Whisperwind.
And now, after so long, there is much we need to say to one another.
I know, sisters. But judgment comes.
Below lies the Maw, an unjust fate to which you doomed so many. And it will be there that your penance begins. Every soul lost in its depths, betrayed or condemned, you shall find and send forth to the Arbiter, to be judged with the compassion all souls deserve. You will toil there, under Doratha's watchful eye, scouring every darkened reach, until the final soul is free, and you are all that remains. This is how you shall bring renewal to your victims, and my people.
However long it takes, it shall be done.
Undo Falador, old friend. Watch her well. Banshee's penance will save countless lost souls. A fate that would not have come to pass had I slain her in Ardenweald. Perhaps that is why Mother Moon stayed my hand. I thank you for your aid. Soon I must return to Azeroth, to begin healing the Kaldori and preserving our future.
renewal instead of vengeance. Sylvanas Windrunner's punishment for her crimes is to be stuck in the Shadowlands expansion, do maw dailies for all eternity, until hell has been cleared out and each soul has been given a fair chance at redemption. The work begins now, which also gives her the opportunity to search for her beloved Nephanos.
For so long there had been little more than hatred and malice in our sister's eyes. To at last see a glimmer of the Sylvanas we knew.
I had ceased hoping for such a thing. I am pleased we had a chance to speak with her, Verisa.
I only wish we'd had more time.
As do I. But if she stays true to her word and sees this obligation through, perhaps one day we will.
It will never be like it was before. The pain she inflicted upon the Kaldoroi, upon the world. How could she ever answer for it?
I'm not certain she can. But if her penance brings any measure of peace to those she wronged, at least it is a start.
You are right, Lady Sun. Our family has endured so much darkness. We must find a way to cling to hope.
Yes, Little Moon. Mother. Father. Lyrith. They are only memories. We thought our sister was as well. But now, we shall see.
And with the completion of this story, we now have a memorial for Lyrith and the Windrunner sisters at their Windrunner Tower. That is where the story to Banshee Queen of the Dark Lady of Sylvanas Windrunner ends for the moment. But like Arthas before her actions ripple on, especially with the Boy King.
Why are you here, Anduin? Your kingdom and your friends are awaiting your return.
My friends. The ones I almost killed. They believe my hands are clean. But they don't feel clean.
It is perilous to confuse what you are made to do with what you choose to do.
How can I not when it all blurs together? It was so horrific and exhilarating. And it sickens me to think that satisfaction may have been mine.
Ah, so that's why you've come. You fear you might not be who you thought you were.
I'm starting to wonder if I ever knew. For the first time in my life, I'm afraid that if I call on the light, it won't answer. If I've no trust in myself, how can I expect my kingdom to trust me? To put their faith in me when mine has faltered?
Must you bear that weight?
A king does not have a choice.
No choice? I thought you believed in free will.
I need time to think about many things.
Anduin, I have faced who I was and accepted what I've done. Now, the work begins.
Yes, it does. Farewell, Sylvanas Windrunner. Until our paths cross again.
Farewell, little lion.
Anduin is going to go on a personal journey of trying to overcome the damage done to him, while Sylvanas stays in the Maw to be of service. She had proudly announced to Arthas and the jailer that she would never serve. It felt right to be of service now, and she appreciated the difference.
I found you before, my love. I will find you again. No matter how long it takes.
With the jailer destroyed and the Covenants of the Shadowlands working together once more, there was a slim chance that one day she might be able to see her parents and Lyrith as well. Perhaps one day in the future, we might see her story continued. Personally, in the realm of speculation, I think that Sylvanas is going to make a return in the upcoming free expansions. We know that her sister Illyria is going to play a part, and we've seen in the intro cutscene that she travels to Dalaran, where Varisa lives, her other sister.
Not a Banshee Queen, not a Ranger General, but always a Windrunner.
We also know that Illyria hears the whispers of the dark, of the void, and we had this old line.
Sometimes I feel that I have already died twice. Once, when we were presumed lost on Draenor, and again, when gripped by the shadow of the fallen Naru. Perhaps death is the true legacy of the Windrunners.
At the hour of her third death, she ushers in our coming.
I could imagine a scenario in which Illyria falls to darkness, and then Sylvanas pops her head out of the maw, out of the Shadowlands. All done with her time served. She could be a powerful ally in turning the tides of darkness, with reaching out to her sister, bringing her back from the dark side. But that's pure speculation. For now, she's paying for her crimes, still able to send voice messages to the Forsaken. Sylvanas loyalists, they were given a special message from the Banshee Queen after obtaining their heritage armor. I'll use that one to end the video with. So for now, thank you very much for watching, everyone. Subscribe if you like my videos. And until next time, see ya!
Greetings, my most loyal ally. I speak to you now from beyond the Veil of Death, here in this place of eternal darkness. My work, my penance, continues. Though the Maw is an unlikely place for one to find peace. Each soul I rescue helps mine feel a little more whole. As I ponder my deeds since being raised into undeath, I have many regrets. Things said and choices made that I wish could be taken back. But there is one thing for which I will always be proud. Helping the Forsaken find their place in a world that shunned them. My time to lead may be over, but I will always stand with you against those who would cast you out and call you monsters. Under the leadership of the Desolate Council, a new group of voices has arisen to represent all Forsaken. Stand proud in the Horde. Know that all of you were so much more than arrows in my quiver. As much as the family I was born into, you will always be my people. And one day, I do hope to walk among you once again. I must go. There are many more souls yet to be freed. Among them, one that is most dear to me. Shorella Ran, my friend.